And like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we are back. And this is the Salt of the Streets podcast.
It is Friday. Whew, that was close one. November 2nd, 4:41 p.m. This is episode 38, right? Jesus Christ.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary on weekly news, pop culture, and sports, built from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. Join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless efforts to bridge the gap between people and information. As always, we are your hosts. I am indeed Colin.
I am Donovan.
And coming up on this week's show, we got another listener request. Shout out to Isaiah, a.k.a. Third and Brooks, for this one. He wants to know about the migrant caravan and the possible implications.
Honduras.
And so we're definitely going to hit that. After that, we have some, how do we phrase it in the pre-show? Called it like the Trump administration and the trans community, maybe.
Yeah, and they want to redefine gender as a specific whatever. We'll go into that later. Yeah, the definition they have over gender. And
then of course we both got pretty fully stuffed grab bags,
full sacks,
full grab sacks. I can't even get through that one with a straight face. And of course, probably much, much more, like always. But of course, before we dive into the heavy stuff, just take a second and rate and review the show on whatever you're listening to us on right now, whether it's SoundCloud, Stitcher, Apple, iTunes, podcast. Give us that 30 seconds. Give us a rating. Give us a review. And of course, don't forget, if you screenshot that review and send it to us on one of the actually, we haven't gotten to the social medias yet, but you'll get $5 off this deliciously beautiful Salt of the Streets shirt.
They come in all sizes, not just this one.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is just the one that fits on the screen.
This is just the one.
And how to do that? Well, you can follow us on Instagram at Salt of the Streets. Give us a like on Facebook at Salt of the Streets. Check out our weekly blog on saltofthestreets.com. And of course, if you're the type to enjoy a video podcast, which I hope you are, and I hope you're watching right now,
I like
the YouTube channel is Salt of the Streets. Just search us on YouTube. You'll find us there. We drop new videos on Tuesday. Podcast drops on Monday, which of course you know because you're listening to this right now. Saltofthestreets.com. We have everything that we do there, links to everything, including our weekly blog post that drops on Thursdays.
Everything.
And of course, because this isn't just two homies sitting here chopping it up about politics and the sick depravity that is the news and all that twisted stuff that we love so much.
It's a sad time.
We also want to include you in this conversation. So just like Isaiah Brooks there, if you want to hear us talk about something, you want to get in that conversation, let us know. Hit us up on our personal social media. I am at Big Bird Offie on both the Twitter machine and the Instagrams.
I am Salt of the Street on Twitter and alpaca_Donovan on Instagram.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
You and your alpacas.
Yeah. Also, Movember. We talked about this in the pre-show, but we're talking about it now again. Colin and I are both participating in Movember. This is my third year registered with the Movember Foundation, working for men's health, testicular cancer, prostate cancer, other types of things that only men can get because men's health, that's what it has to do with. So we're going to grow mustaches this month, and we're going to donate some money. You can give us money, not us, but the Movember Foundation in our name. And you can do that by, like I said, I'm going to post these links with the episodes and everything. You can also just go to Movember.com and search for either of our names, and you can donate there, and everything will be good to go. So anything you can give is appreciated. It's $5, $2, $1, anything, especially if you're a man. This, like I said in the pre-show, the way that I think about it is if I get cancer in my testicles or on my prostate, I'm going to be really happy that I grew out my mustache. Your mustaches. And,
absolutely. Participated.
Money exactly. So I think that it's worth it. Anything you can do. Save some people's lives. Everybody knows a man, everybody loves at least one man in their life.
Yeah. If you're alive, you had a father at some point.
At some point, you had someone that was a male that helped your life come into existence.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily a father, but a
male,
someone that sired you.
Yeah, and
sounds terrible.
And since then, there's probably at least one male in your life that you've not hated. And I think it's worth it.
Absolutely,
I think it's worth it to save men's lives.
Not to mention, we're also helping all of humanity. I push, by supporting these types of, research funds and stuff like that. You're always pushing towards, finding a better way to treat cancers. And I mean, you're always helping people out.
Yeah.
Last weekend we talked in the pre-show. I went to that Rotary Gala, and it was the first time that I was ever really able to participate really in a charity like that, and to be able to give an amount of money that I've never been able to do before.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of been a believer in charities, but I've never. Now I am 1,000% behind the act of charity. I felt so good to be able to give money towards this organization that helps out the local community. I know people that volunteer there, and I just felt really, really good. And like the power that has to be able to be like, okay, I worked hard for this money, but I want to give it to these people that go out and do good in my community with that money. And it feels really good. So make yourself feel good. Well, I haven't registered yet, so I got to do that at the end of the cast. But by the time you hear this on Monday, donate some dollars. Help out some people, man. That's really all it's about. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's the old blood drive thing,
It's worth it.
You ever given blood before?
No, that freaks me out.
Okay.
But
I passed out when it happened to me.
I'm
I'm a big dude. I mean, it's hard to pump blood through this whole thing.
Yeah. No, it freaks me out for people that take stuff out of my body. But
you can make more, bro. It's fine.
Me. And
you get an orange juice and a cookie afterwards.
Yeah. No, I totally know that. But it's not something that I dated a girl once that I went with her to donate blood once, and I sitting there, at the table and was talking to the dude, and he was like, "Have you ever donated blood before?" No, man, that just, I don't know.
That's my blood.
You're just taking stuff out of me and putting it in other people, and it's like, what saves lives and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I know that. Like, I consciously, I know that. But, like, that's, I don't know. That's weird.
No judgment.
It's just a personal.
That can be a tough hurdle to kind of get over.
Yeah. And so that's just me. But I would sooner donate semen, for no dollars than I would, like, donate blood.
I got you. Just because, hey, it works out for me, works out for you.
Yeah, I don't know. That just seems like an easier hurdle to get over. That, like, because it also is a little bit weird for me to think like, well, there might be somebody out there who has a kid that like has my DNA.
That's a weird thing. Genetically your kid.
But
see, I could never get over that. That part would freak me out about that.
I don't know that my wife would be okay with it, but for me personally, I think it would be easier for me to be like,
that'd be kind of cool, spread the good genes.
Right.
Hopefully, I have good genes. I don't know. I should take that 23andMe and find out.
Well, and I guess that's why I say that is because like Jordan, like the whole time that she was growing up, was told that she was gonna have a really hard time having kids, and then got pregnant super fast,
super quick.
Maybe it'll benefit somebody else too. So like maybe it'll be for the better,
Yeah, right. You got some super juice brewing in the old flesh balloons down there.
It's the maca root and vitamin C. I'm telling you,
that's 100%.
I feel like.
So that's what. Oh yeah, that's right. We talked about that last week, right?
We talked about
some of that maca root
a long time ago too. We talked about that.
Yeah,
when we first started talking about having a baby. So. Like, 30 weeks ago, probably.
That's that Rhonda Patrick suggestions, right? Yeah. She knows what she's talking about.
The maca root and the vitamin C, like 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, and just some maca root capsules. Like,
plus, vitamin C is basically candy.
It's
it's those things. It's like my. I take melatonin now every night.
Yeah,
it's kind of a low dose, but it's melatonin and it's a little gummy.
Yeah,
but it's basically a candy. It is so good.
When I take every day, I take. Like a B12 that is a B12 complex that also has some vitamin C in it that makes my piss smell real weird and makes it a strange color, but it makes it feel great in the morning. And then another vitamin C, and I take a vitamin D, and then I take some maca root, and I take this big ass probiotic. And I wash it all down with a glass of chocolate milk in the morning, and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Chocolate milk. Ooh.
Some Nesquik and some fucking fiber powder, because I used to do... So check, right? I'm sure a lot of people are judging me, right? But to take all those pills, you got to have something. You're supposed to take them with food, so you have to have something, right? So chocolate milk with like the intermittent fasting that I try and do is like the easiest way to do that and not really fuck with that. So so I used to do breakfast essentials every day, right? Have you heard of this before?
Yes.
Breakfast essentials, they even make a thing that comes in like individual packets that you just can fucking put into a cup and put milk in there.
I used to have those like when I was in like my senior year.
So Nesquik has less sugar and almost the same amount of vitamins as breakfast essentials made by Carnation. So it only makes sense for me to buy Nesquik and to use that instead, because with all the other vitamins I'm taking, it doesn't fucking matter. Like it's a negligible thing. So
that is crazy to think about.
It's fucked up. Yeah. So I don't buy breakfast essentials anymore because I sat there at Costco with the box and the fucking thing in hand. Oh fuck. We were supposed to talk about voting in the goddamn pre-show.
Oh, were we?
God damn it. On Tuesday, people are supposed to vote. But we can talk about it here, too, before I continue.
Well, you'll still get it on Monday.
Yeah.
You got time. Just as long as you don't need to register, it's already too late for that.
Yeah, and we talked about this. If you don't vote for the people, vote for the initiatives in Washington. That's or anywhere. Vote for the initiatives, because that's what's going to affect you directly.
On a day-to-day life level.
In your
paycheck to paycheck.
State, that's what's going to affect you. Vote on the initiatives. You don't have to vote on everything. You can leave whatever the fuck you want blank. You're allowed to do that. But just vote for the initiatives. Take control of what's going on in your life and in your town and in your state and in your city. Take control of that. Do what you can and vote. This is where your vote matters. For all the people who think, oh, why don't vote because my vote doesn't matter? You know, the electoral college and all the blah, 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 super delegates, fucking bullshit, blah, blah, blah. This is where it matters. This is the time that it counts.
Yep.
These initiatives are done by your vote. Fucking vote. Take control of what's going on in your local area and vote.
It's the foundation of our democratic republic.
Absolutely.
And voter apathy has been one of the... I mean, it has shaped the way America has been run since its inception. Voter apathy... I think we're going to have numbers this time that will, I think voting will be on the rise again.
Hella votes.
I really, really hope so.
Hella votes this year, I think.
But I mean, last midterm, so that'd be 4 years ago, voter turnout, especially for the midterms, was like the lowest in recent history, at least.
It's been real bad.
Yeah, really, really bad. And I wanted to say, don't quote me on this, but I wanted to say it was close to like 50%.
Just
something like that, 56 maybe.
Yeah.
But that's just, I mean,
horrible.
And I can understand the mentality people have, but it doesn't change anything to not vote. Period. Nothing's ever going to go anywhere if you don't do anything. If you abstain from voting altogether, like I just think this is all wrong. Well, then life's just going to happen around you. And you will have no say.
Yep.
And the only way that you as a citizen can voice your thoughts and your opinions is through how you vote and what you vote for, who you vote for. The initiatives that are on this electoral ballot came from the representatives that you put into office.
Yeah.
And if you don't vote, you won't get initiatives that you care about. Nothing will get done unless you get up and do something.
And this goes for anybody from here on for the rest of my life, right? If we, by some chance, stroke of fate, are able to get famous, right? Like anybody that is trying to approach me and have some type of conversation, like I'm probably going to ask you if you voted. And if you didn't vote, I'm not going to fucking talk to you. Because if you haven't, unless you're not able to, right? If you're some type of felon and you're trying to do some good shit, you got a job, whatever, and you're just not able to vote, that's something else, right? But if you're a regular citizen who has nothing barring them from voting and just chooses not to vote, I'm not going to talk to you about politics. I'm not going to talk to you about any type of policy or anything because you chose not to express your opinion. So I'm not going to do that with you. You know, I'm not going to have that conversation with you because you chose not to do that.
See, I will have a conversation with them about why they would choose not to vote. Yeah. And then I would try to convince them that.
But not about policy and individual things themselves, because
we need to get past the gate first. I mean, they may have in their mind a legitimate reason why I don't vote. System's rigged. And hopefully with the help of somebody that knows how, a little bit about how the system works and all that, convince them that is indeed not the case.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. I mean, it can seem like that.
Right.
But it's not true at all. And so the only way you can make any form of difference, I wouldn't say the only way. The best way to make significant change and difference in your community, in your state, in the nation, is to get out there and vote your conscience.
Absolutely.
So get out there, vote. You got one day if you're picking this up on Monday. We're going to tweet about it. We're going to blow it up on social media.
Vote.
Probably from today, which is Friday, all the way until voting day.
Fucking vote.
We filled out our ballots the other day. We're going to drop them in tomorrow, and very excited about it. It's I felt good about my. We had a really good discussion last week. If you missed last week's show and you want to learn some more about the initiatives and stuff like that, take a look at episode 37. We talk all about it. And really help break it down, at least the Washington initiatives and stuff like that. But
yeah, absolutely.
I think the ideas there are pretty wide spread,
Applied to everywhere.
Yeah, I think so. That was a good impromptu mini seg, bro. I like how you wrote that on your hand.
I did.
For those of you who are not watching. Hand. Yeah, I saw. He looked at it. He's like, "Fuck!" I was like, "What?" It said vote.
So I went to the Mexican place and I got a beer, and then the rest of the guys got there. And Spencer bought a pitcher, and I was like, oh, well, I should do that if everyone's going to be here. So I was like, well, let me get one of those, and then I'll buy the next pitcher. Mm-hmm. And so I bought a pitcher, and then Casey bought another pitcher, and then Tyler bought a pitcher, and then Drew bought a pitcher, and the one that I bought hadn't got finished yet. So I was like, well, I need to at least finish this pitcher before I leave here. And so then when I got home, I was getting ready and I was putting stuff in the box and I was like, oh my God. Like, I'm packing in my purple pen that I write all my notes in because all my notes are written in purple pen. Fuck y'all if you're judging me. But I was like, I need to remember to tell people to vote. And so I fucking
wrote it down.
Wrote it on my hand real quick because I figured at some point I would be fucking, making my point and being all wild and look at my hand and be like, oh, God damn it. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
So, I wish I would have said in the pre-show, but that's all right. We'll talk about it enough times since then.
Yeah.
But it'll be.
When we get on that social, we can put that in the thing there.
Yes. Fucking vote, man. And women, just people, fucking vote, man.
Well, after we record today's episode, we could stop and we can do another quick little live message. And throw it out there.
Pop it out there?
Totally do that.
I think we could probably do that nice and quick. I think
it's 2018. We can do whatever we want, baby. The world is our oyster.
This is our fucking social media.
Exactly. And in our world, today we're going to talk about your world.
Yeah.
And how you are not under threat of invasion from migrants. Which I just...
Fuck that, dude. That's part of the point I have here because Jordan and I, my wife and I, I was doing research, right? And she's like, what are you looking at? And I said, well, I'm looking up like the caravan and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm excited to hear about that because I don't know about that. And I said, well, what do you want to know? Like, talk to me right now because that will help me formulate what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
So we talked for probably fucking 40 minutes, about the caravan. And like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. That's a probiotic right there. Boop, boop. Little bit about why they're coming here because I don't know that much about Honduras itself, but a little bit about that and why people would come here if they feel like, or if they're being told that they won't be able to come in, and why do people have such a stigma against immigrants? And, we talked about so much stuff and it was, these brackets here are just talking points for discussions about that.
Well, yeah, that's why I was super glad that Isaiah reached out and brought this up because there are so many different points to hit. There's so many different angles to look at this from. There's so many, especially, there's a whole angle that it doesn't actually deal with the migrants at all. And it's strictly political because of midterms and all this. There's so much around this that it's really more about just the broadest, most general discussion of immigration in general almost.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to get into it. Maybe we should just start off with the facts about it, maybe.
Yeah.
And then just kind of go off from there.
So the earliest record I have of kind of the beginnings of what's being called the caravan now, right? Or this particular one that's being discussed, right? The big one is 160 people that gathered in San Pedro Sula on October 12th, right? That kind of started talking about like creating a group of people to walk to America. And then by the time that they left, there was 1,000 people that left the next morning that traveled through Guatemala to Mexico. And they gained thousands more people on the way. On the 22nd of October, there was reported to be 7,000 people in the caravan. And then on the 30th, there was reported to be 3,500 people.
Yeah.
And there's a second group coming and more other people. There's another 3,000 at the Mexico-Guatemala border that I've heard about. So
they just kind of fought through.
Right.
And it's important to note that, say, because the numbers are all kind of, guesstimations almost in a way. They're not real exact.
Because they're differing depending on who's reporting it. Whether it's like the UN or reporters that are with the caravan, because it's so spread out, it's hard to estimate 7,000 people, because if you're standing with a group of people, you can only see so far. You can't see 7,000 people standing in, 4 or 5 in a row, all the way back to, you can't see that far. So,
and at a certain point, how do you've never been around that kind of crowd before. You've never seen that. You don't know how to kind of guesstimate how many people are. And so, you get a lot of numbers all over the place. But then another important aspect to look at is these numbers that started bigger and they dwindled off. These are people, for the most part, that have kind of gone to a place and then found a place where they were like, okay, no, I'm good. I gotta. There's a bunch of people that actually sought asylum in Mexico.
2,700 people have applied for asylum in Mexico, and 500 other people have just agreed to turn around and go back to Honduras, because that's where the San Pedro Sula, right, is in Honduras. I didn't mention that, but that's where this core group of the caravan originated from, is Honduras. And that's where this additional 3,000 people that are at the Mexican-Guatemala border that I was talking about, most of them are also Hondurans that are fleeing. I mean, they're poverty, violence, persecution, gang violence, corruption that goes on within the government. And that's part of what we started to talk about, like Jordan and I the other day, that she was like, if they know that President Trump has these views, and they know that like the National Guard is being deployed to the border, and they know that like some people don't want them here, why would they continue to come here? In one of the articles that I was reading, I think from the BBC, that was talking about like most of these people have just like a divine faith that once they get to the border, like the hope will just change, people's minds will change and they'll be let in, and that's like how it will be. And that's,
I don't know how deeply any immigrant really would know about the complex and complicated and convoluted immigration system of the United States.
So you think they just assume that once they get there, they'll just change their minds?
That, or it's just, it's the only thing that they feel they can do is go try.
And and we talked about that too, right? Because I told Jordan, I said, I understand to a point, right? I can't totally understand because I've never been in that circumstance where I feel like I need to leave where I live to find a better opportunity, right? But if I sit back and I think, as a soon-to-be father, if I knew that I couldn't find a job and I didn't have faith that my government would continue to exist, would I try and go to Canada? Probably. Would I try and take you and Dax to Canada? Probably.
Yeah.
Because if I felt like that was a better opportunity, I probably would do that. If that's what I feel like is best for my family. So I understand that.
Well, I think, Because there's a lot of like ire coming from one side of the debate here about how, criminals and they're illegal and blah, blah, blah. And we don't want them here.
People from the Middle East and
and Jews apparently.
Yes,
that was another thing that I heard. I was like,
that are mixed in with the caravan.
Yeah. Okay. Why does that make a difference? I don't know.
It's important to know that's important. That's reported by our president. Donald Trump. So
shake my head.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just understand saying that. Like, I don't care who's in there because I know that we have a vetting process. And so, I mean, you see it all the time about how there are people that get arrested as they try to come through the border somehow. And it turns out that they have some kind of ties to some of our, some red flag group somewhere. And they get arrested or they get just automatically turned around, deported or something. I mean, I understand that, having a controlled border is an absolutely necessary thing for a sovereign nation to have. And that is by no means, when we talk about migrants and all this, it's just a point that you need to understand that most of the positions, at least on my side, are made with knowing that system is in place, regardless of how imperfect it is and how, screwed up it is and stuff like that. It still does weed through some of the, the threats, if you will, that come across the border.
Right.
And so, I just don't want it to sound like we're an open borders type of individual.
No,
nothing like that.
Not at all, right.
Just because you can have sympathy for a migrant doesn't mean that you support, the far extreme position either way.
So Jordan also asked me, right? She said, so what happens when they get here, right? If this is the case, like what happens when they get here? And I said, well, from what I understand, some of these people are fleeing violence and persecution and would be eligible to apply for asylum, right? But most of these people are looking for better economic opportunities, right? Which is not something that we allow people to come here for because that's not how...
That's what standard immigration is for.
Right. And so I said, so when they get here, like the people who are able to apply for asylum, when they get to the border, like realistically, objectively, when I think about it, right, based on the policy that we have now that's in place legally and not whatever fucking President Trump says off a whim, right? So when they get here, they're going to evaluate what their reason is for being here. And the people who can apply for asylum will apply for asylum. And the people who are not eligible to come in here can either apply to come here, just for green cards or whatever. And if they get denied, they'll get turned around. They will get sent home. So that is how it works. If they don't try and sneak in, if they just walk up to an access point,
a port of entry.
Right. That's what it's called. Right. Sorry. So if they would just walk into a port of entry and they talk, I'm like, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So realistically, that is what will happen.
And you know what's funny?
Invasion. These people are not violent. Of all of the pictures I've seen of their... Okay, and I have to go off a little tangent right now because of all the bullshit that I've seen on Facebook in these last couple of weeks, especially about this caravan, right? That fuck Facebook. Anything that you are seeing on Facebook about the caravan is probably not fucking true. And if you're not taking 5 fucking seconds to go back, and I gotta take my phone out so that I can record this, so that I can put this.
Yeah, this is a
on
good
the
one.
Instagram also. That I just.
You're not very passionate about that at all.
If you are not taking 5 fucking seconds to try and corroborate something you have read on Facebook or on Instagram or on some type of bullshit that is not a legitimate news source, then you are a fucking idiot. You are not doing your duty as an informed person and are, in fact, working against the common good of America and spreading disinformation. If you are only getting your news from Facebook, you are not doing your job as an American citizen. I cannot express that any more clearly. Facebook is not a reputable news source by any stretch of the imagination.
Not a news source at all.
9 of the 10 fucking videos that you see on Facebook that are tagged whatever are not even relevant to whatever they are under.
Exactly.
I swear to God, I promise you. And if you go and look, and no matter what you think about the New York Times or the Washington Post, right? They have to abide by the law that if they say something that is not true, they can be sued by whoever the fuck they have lied about. They cannot just boldly lie. They can absolutely skew stories to look a little bit better from the way that they want them to look. But they cannot, by law, boldly fucking openly lie to you. I do not and cannot understand anybody's thought process behind that. Oh, well, fuck them. That's fake news. It cannot be. It doesn't legally. The New York Times and Washington Post could not continue to exist if they openly lied and did not retract the lies that they had posted. I can't. If you are getting your news from Facebook, you need to adjust your life. Because that's not a reputable news source. That's not a good place to get your information.
You can still get information from Facebook as long as you're willing to put in the legwork to do the research behind it. Because I'll tell you what, this
have to double check.
This speaks directly to the impact that the Russian hacking, that what's commonly referred to as the Russian hacking, and the fake news swarm during the election of 2016. And it's the same thing that if you don't think it's happening now and has been happening for the last few months, I mean, you're lying to yourself.
We can't, we are not in the business of lies, right? This is the whole idea of this podcast is to bridge the gap between people and information. All we want, the only thing that Colin and I want in our lives is for us and you to understand the truth of what is happening in this country so you can be informed and understand what is going on around you, right? We will not lie to you. That is why I devote my Tuesday at work to listening to the episodes of this podcast and looking up anything I'm not sure about when I listen back to it to make sure that it's the truth. Right?
Your Twitter is a fact check central, man.
Anything you have questions on, if you don't have a Twitter, right? If you don't have a Twitter, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can still go to mine and look up anything that is hashtag correction tweet, because that's anything that I have looked up afterwards, after we've done the podcast on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, whenever I'm able to listen to it. And I've looked up to make sure or validate it is correct, or I have corrected myself, because I'm not afraid to admit that I have been wrong, right? That's why I sit here and I say, oh, fact check. So when I'm listening to it, I know I need to look that up. We're not in that business. That's not what we do. We are here to give you the facts and tell you what our opinion is and be very clear about that. If there's anything I've ever done to misconstrue my opinion as the truth, then I am truly sorry about that. But that's not what I want. I only want you to understand the objective truth of what's going on so you can form your opinion and then understand how I feel about it based on what I have perceived.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
Because we do talk about our opinions. When we talk about stories like this, because we're going to get into a lot of stuff about just immigration in general, I think, with this. And as we voice our opinions, we understand that those are our own opinions that we have formed through objective facts that we have researched and seen. I think I'm good for now. And
that's a good one.
It is a good one, right?
That's a good one.
Some firecrackers get kind of clogged up.
But that's gold.
It is. So, and I wanted to say something about your correction tweets. Probably the best resource to find the correction tweets are on our website, saltthestreets.com, because they show on the sidebar, they have your Twitter, which is perfect because you are the correction tweeter. Because I don't have time for that. I wish I did.
Tweet at work. Whenever I have anything that I'm like too spun up about that I don't want to talk about, that's where I'm going to turn to.
I've been trying to get more active on the Twitter.
Can be tough to do.
It can be. But I mean, I don't know. Do you usually do replies or like quote tweets if you want to get into a convo?
A conversation, I'll do a reply tweet. But if I'm just going to if I see an article or something that I have something to say about, I'll quote tweet that. And be like, this is bullshit, or I agree with this for, this reason, or what the fuck ever. So.
Yeah. I got actually on the topic of the caravan. Somebody had quote tweeting an article about how the caravan was carrying the Honduran flag. It's like, has anybody ever stopped to think about why they're carrying a Honduran flag if they're leaving Honduras? And because
they're from Honduras.
I said, yeah, just because you want to immigrate somewhere or are forced to immigrate somewhere, whatever, doesn't mean you have to lose your sense of, national pride.
Right. You just don't have faith in the government that's running it right now.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't mean you don't love, like, Honduras. That's fucking crazy.
That's insane to think about. And I saw that tweet, and I don't know who it was, but it was somebody with a blue check. So I knew that my reply wasn't going to even get seen. But that was one of those things. I was like, dude, okay, if you're going to try to I understand that because of who this was, it was probably just like a political, I'm on this team, so I got to say something. And just because you're on that team, or just because you support like a rock solid, tight and clean, efficient immigration system, doesn't mean that like you can't have, like, what's the word? You can't feel bad for the migrants that are coming for whatever reason. I mean, you don't have to dehumanize them and see them as some kind of foreign enemy.
Right.
Like it's, the fear tactic that's being played right now because it is midterm season.
And so, sorry, go ahead. Are you done?
Yeah, pretty much.
So that was another thing that Jordan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you with that.
No, I think that was it.
There was another thing that Jordan had asked me about, was just like, where do you think this stigma comes from like, there's immigrants that come here from South America that like have, shitty jobs that we don't have. And so that stigma, I think, comes, and this is again my opinion, right? I think that stigma comes from a couple of different places, right? Part of it from the way that people our age and the generation right before us were raised, right? That we were raised to go to college, not to learn a trade, not to learn to do something, but to go to college, right? So we don't want to work hard. We want to be smart and then get paid a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So all the shitty jobs, the picking fucking fruit and farming animals and doing all that shit, we don't want to do that because we don't feel like we should have to, you know? So it's hard for people to find work or people to do that work because we don't want to do it, you know? And there are a lot of people, I've seen all kinds of documentaries and shows, especially on Vice and stuff, from farmers that are like, I'm willing to pay minimum wage to American workers, but they don't want this job. They don't want to work here. So that's why I hire people who offer to take less than minimum wage because they don't belong here, So in turn, those same people get pissed off, that there are immigrants here working and taking these jobs that we don't want, that they don't want, that they wouldn't take anyway,
They took our jobs.
Right. So I know that if I didn't have the job I had now, right, and if the only opportunity I had was to go out and pick fucking strawberries for minimum wage, that's what I'm going to do because that's what I have to do to support my family, But there are a lot of people who don't think that way and don't want to do that because they're too good for that, So it comes with that. And I said, and that's almost a generational difference, because we just weren't raised that way.
I can see that.
So, and a lot of the people who think the other way, that are more of I kind of started thinking about it, two different parties, right? The college generation and the trade generation, because the people before us, like the baby boomers and a little bit after that, were a trade. You need to learn to invest in the country, deal with some type of infrastructure or some type of industry, something that is going to improve the country, put in your fucking work, get your gold watch, get the fuck out.
I think that's kind of that might be giving that generation a little too much credit, but I think I agree with you that that's where that generation certainly focused.
So maybe generation is not the right term, but like time frame, is the better like term, right? And I thought about generation in more of a general sense of like baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, like shit like that, So it's more of a broader like.
Actually, I am going to correct myself there because I kind of forget sometimes that there is a Gen X.
Yeah.
That's who I'm thinking of. But no, yes. The baby boomer, yes.
And so
then I do 100% agree with you now that I think about that.
Right. And so I said to her, and it's the same group of people, right? The same type of trade generation that make up a lot of Donald Trump's base, right? And it's those same people that also not only look down on the school generation, but also look down on the immigrants taking the jobs from the school generation because they almost blame them just as much, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just that, but they're also listening to President Trump spout off all these lies, about, these are criminals and these are murderers and they're drug addicts and they're drug dealers and they're from the Middle East and they're this and they're that and they're ruining the country, and all this stuff. And those people, because they don't trust what's going on, the people coming up in this country, they don't trust the media. They don't trust anything like that. They trust President Trump. They trust Donald Trump. That's it. Mm-hmm. And as long as those people are supporting Donald Trump and people like that, and as long as those people are believing that icon over the media, over the people that are here to tell them the truth, none of this is going to change. Mm-hmm. None of this is going to be any different because they don't believe what's actually going on. They believe what President Trump is saying. No matter how many times we can sit here, and I even thought this morning while I'm in the shower, I'm like, I should start on the back page of my notebook, I should start a tally of all the lies that I find.
You can't do that.
And then I'm like, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of fucking time. There are entire
websites devoted to that. And by the way,
as long as that's happening, nothing is going to be any different. As long as people believe President Trump and that bullshit and those lies over the truth, nothing will be any different. Because you can't convince them. I've seen it in people in my own family. You cannot convince them that those videos on Facebook and the things that President Trump is saying are not the truth. You can't. It's impossible to tell them anything otherwise because that's what they believe.
Yes.
And until that's shifted, nothing is going to change. Until that group is able to at least open their eyes a little bit, nothing is going to change. And the same can be said for the other side. I'm not trying to discount the other side, right? But that's like when we're talking about immigration, the fucking wall, closing people out, sending National Guard to the border. That's what we're talking about. It's this side that wants no one here. That is interpreting, that the leftist media is talking about, people are interpreting this as white nationalism when President Trump talks about being a nationalist, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Is those same people that are like, yeah, fuck that. I don't want immigrants here. It's the same people that try and that aren't able to separate immigration from other issues, right? Because And I laid this out for Jordan, and I don't mean to go on for too long, right? But I laid this out for Jordan that like the American government is a fucking Venn diagram of like 13 different circles, right? They all overlap just a little bit, but are all completely separate, right? So many people that aren't a fan of immigration, people coming here are like, well, what about the veterans, right? And what about the people with disabilities that are here that don't have jobs and they're not taken care of? I hear you and I understand, but that is not relevant to immigration.
It's called whataboutism.
Those two things are completely separate, right? If you have a problem with immigrants or with veterans living on the streets, you have to look at the VA. Yeah. If you have a problem with people with disabilities not getting jobs and something like that, that has to do with American bias and their problem with people with disabilities, not about fucking immigration and people coming here, right?
Yeah. And that's a problem on both sides, which
absolutely.
is funny. It's called that whataboutism that I just said. It's one of those, you take one issue that, like you said, might overlap in that Venn diagram with something else, and which is a completely different conversation, which is something I actually saw in one of the, which one was it? Oh, it was actually during the, that in the next topic that we're going to talk about, the trans thing, the Trump trans relationship.
Yeah.
Where they try to, it's a New York Times post where they essentially kind of do that whataboutism and say, they look to this problem, social problem, I guess, this battle in the culture war, and then try to relate, to find a couple little things in that correlate over here. And they say, well, what about those? What about that?
Yeah.
And it drives me insane. It's the old, if you're going to try to shit on Trump, if you're going to call him out for something, call him out for something that's legitimate, because there's 1,001 things that are legitimate call outs to make. Don't try to swing wild, man.
Right.
Don't try to bring in this subject if it doesn't belong, because you have one little detail that might correlate.
Because
it drives me up a wall.
Right, because there's a difference between whataboutism and like using something as an example.
Exactly.
Like, well, why don't we take a look 60 years ago at like other shit that's happened and like, well, trying to divert to another issue that is you can relate, you can draw some type of line.
You can almost
but
make
it's not
any
really
two things correlate
exactly
at some point.
It's like that game where they call it like the 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon or the 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You know, like
I've heard that, but I have no idea what it is.
Like, so anybody, you can take any actor. And through 3 different movies or 3 different relationships, you can connect them to Kevin Bacon somehow. Okay. It's like any fucking famous person somehow through 3 different people or movies, you can connect them to Kevin Bacon.
They tried to do that with the IDW. With some members of the IDW. And then I remember Ruben got super pissed about it for a long time, just would not let that thing drop. But there is one point I wanted to make about those people that are just so diehard about this caravan. You know, it's an invasion. It's threatening, you know, American sovereignty. If you would stop to look just a little bit back in history, this happens almost every single year.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller, but it happens almost every single year. Last year, there was a caravan that came up. And I think it was a lot less than this one. I want to say it was like in the 13-ish, 15-ish originally. And then by the time they actually got to the border, there was like 130 people.
Yeah.
And then most of them were able to get in on some form.
Right.
And some people were arrested because they found out they were criminals or I don't know, something. And were deported. But for the most part, like there's a lot of attrition, number one. And
yeah, that's what
we do have a system that does, you know, work in some fashion. People get in when they come up to seek asylum. It's not they're not all going to get turned away.
Not the people who have legitimate asylum reasons, right?
Yes.
The people who are here just for better economic opportunities may or may not be turned away, right?
It's mostly take a number and get in line.
Exactly. But the people who are here for legitimate asylum purposes will not be turned away. That's not how it works. Regardless of the rhetoric you hear, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think it's important to, regardless of the rhetoric you hear from the White House, from President Trump, from anybody in all those departments, if you have a legitimate reason to flee your home country and come somewhere else, you won't be turned away. That's not how it works here. That's not how America works. We've heard all kinds of stories through the Daily, through Up First, through all kinds of places of people I've specifically embedded, I think, that have interviewed people who worked in immigration and stuff that have actively worked against the system because they feel like it's too stringent for what they're doing and have pushed people through who deserve to be here. You know what I'm saying? There are good people in the system. It is not all fucking President Trump, Jeff Sessions, who everyone thinks is a fucking white supremacist. Like, it's not all racist and pieces of shit. Like, most people are good, legitimate people who are here trying to do what's best and know what's good and what people need.
Yeah.
You know, it's not any different just because you work for the government. Most people who work for the government are pretty good. You know, it's the few that you see on TV that get representation that are pieces of shit. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, we could be working for the government. That doesn't make us assholes. That doesn't make us pieces of shit. We just work for the government because we need a fucking check.
Unless you work at the DOL,
unless you work at the DOL. Did you see the guy who dressed like a sloth? I think it was.
I did.
Oh my god,
that was the meme of like my week, man. That was so good.
Shout out to that fucking guy.
It's from Zootopia. So that was great.
So good.
Which is a fun movie.
That's a crazy movie.
It is.
Lots of fucking symbolism in that movie. It's
super hard. Yeah.
But that's something else.
There was a point I wanted to make about that too.
Yes.
And that's crap. What was it? It's about rhetoric. So rhetoric is a big topic right now.
Yes.
And because, you know, I wanted to bring up Shepard Smith on Fox News.
Okay.
I don't know how it works over there, but, you know, we get a lot of weird, you know, hard, very different opinions sometimes that come out of people's mouths.
Yes.
And Shepard Smith looked right at the camera and he said, I don't care what you've been hearing, but you have nothing to worry about. You are not about to be invaded.
Yeah.
You know, you're not about to have a wave of crime come into your neighborhood.
True.
You are going to be just fine.
Yes.
There is nothing to worry about here. And I was like, Shep, Clap, 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 Shep. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. You're on Fox News, and I highly commend you for saying that. And I don't know what his ratings are, where he ranks in the popularity there, but I used to watch his show a lot back in my old Fox News days. And I've always kind of liked him. He seems relatively level-headed for Fox News, at least. But yeah, there is some good, that you can find, which is nice. But just, you just have to remember that at the end of the day, like you said, I can, at least in my opinion, I recognize that the immigration, system that we have in place is completely flawed, totally screwed up. It is not efficient enough for the amount of people that are on the earth. This is an immigration system that dealt with a population that was probably half its size. And as the population has grown, there's more and more people. And if we don't, the population rate of the planet is pretty severe. Yes. And it's going to be exponential growth unless all of a sudden there's a generation that just doesn't have kids, which might be happening. But regardless, we don't have an immigration system that is built to handle the volume that it does. Right. And as the government over time has gotten more bloated, it takes, just due to the nature of bureaucracy again, things get slower and slower as things get bigger and bigger. It works very similarly in the corporate world too, which the two should be able to learn things from each other. And so even though we have this flawed immigration system, don't think that it's completely broken. It still does work. People still come here. You can still get asylum in America. You can still legally immigrate to America. It's hard. It takes a long time. I am intimately familiar with how long it takes. Right. And it is complete and utter bullshit that it takes that long for people that are upstanding citizens today. Yeah. The first thing they did when they came to America was, okay, how long do I need to become a citizen? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? I want to be part of this thing. They want to be Americans. And they're, we have pictures from my wife's ceremony, both my in-laws' ceremonies. It's one of the proudest days of their whole life. And I think immigration is not a bad thing. People should recognize that, the scare tactic of all of this is utter bullshit. It's a scare tactic that it's being used so much because rhetoric is so important these days. Because it's almost you have to have a better game than the other guy. And so it's kind of gone off and it's spun off on this, dark road that people are just getting nasty. Point we've never seen before. And if that's where you're listening for information again, if you're getting the more extreme views because they're coming from politicians on some level because they're desperate to get the seat. The balance of power right now is so desperate. So you're going to get that from the political side. And so unless you can separate that and think about things objectively and logically, you'll never, you can't, it sounds terrible, but you can't necessarily listen to what politicians say all the time, right? Right. Politicians are like the biggest liars next to lawyers, probably. They're the two most, there's the three most hated, professions in America. Used car salesmen, lawyers, and politicians. And you should remember that because there's a reason that exists. Is because, especially during election time, if they're desperate, they will do what they need to do, say what they need to say to try to get into an office. And so that's when they bring out the fear tactics because it works, as you can see. The only reason this is even a conversation right now is because it works. And there's some good because it brings it up to a lot of people's attention, and intelligent people will try to stop and think about this. If it's something they never heard of before, it's a big world. I don't blame you. But unless you've had to deal with it intimately, you probably don't know that a whole lot about how it works. You just know that we have a system that people can come in. And so I don't blame you for an ignorant stance, but you need to learn about these things if they're going to come up. All these hot button issues that we talk about pretty much every single week. It's okay to be ignorant about these. You know, it's okay to have a gap between yourself and the factual information. But, you know, you can do a couple of things about that. You can fix that by yourself. You just have to put in a little time and a little work. Yeah. And whether that's, you know, listening to people like us or, you know, people involved in the kind of the ideal realm or even the news realm that just believe in the truth.
Yeah.
And spreading facts and then trying to, you know, some people like us, we like to throw out our informed opinions. And it can help drive the way certain people think. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole battle of ideas. And if you just give in to the scare tactic and just bite into it because there's some aspects that might be true, you're doing yourself and the whole world a disservice because it's not necessarily the whole truth.
So there's two things I want to hit on, right? One, I think it's important that you said that to have faith in the system, right? Because there are still people, regardless, again, like I said, regardless of what you hear from the White House, from the leadership in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, any of these things, there are still people in the government that believe in immigration reform to make the system work better. Yeah. Right? Because the world is different, right? So it's important to understand that that is still a thing and make sure that, like we said, when you're voting, you're finding those people and voting for those people who have values that line up with yours. Because that's the whole fucking point, right? I also think it's important for us to talk about a little bit of the effect on America, right? Because that's part of what Isaiah wanted to know, and that's part of what Jordan asked me, right? So what if they do come here, right? What if these do? 7,000 is the highest number, right? So let's work with that. Just to be, you know, totally fucking liberal with it, right?
We already have a plan for that.
She said, so what if they come here and 7,000 more people, right? And I said, so it's important for everybody to know, and everyone should know this, right? Everybody, video, audio, everything. So it's important to know that through the Trump administration, immigration is at the lowest level it's been in like a couple of decades.
It is.
The amount of people that we've brought in as refugees is the lowest that it's been in a couple of decades.
Yeah.
You know? So the amount of people who are here under asylum is the lowest it's been in a couple of decades. So if you add 7,000 people to that, there's no fucking doubt that America's infrastructure can handle 7,000 more people.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
So we can handle it.
So we are in fact budgeted to hold more than 7,000 people to come here. So there's no fucking doubt, right? So again, another point to say fuck Facebook, right? It doesn't matter what the fuck you're hearing on Facebook. It's fucking Facebook, right? It doesn't matter. It's bullshit. America's infrastructure and all those things that I just said are absolutely true. Immigration, lowest it's been in a long time. Refugees amounts, lowest it's been in a long time. Right? Asylum, lowest it's been in a long time. Those are all facts. You can fact check them all. You can Google them all. They're all true. It doesn't matter. It's not a lie. It's all true. We can handle 7,000 more people. Do I agree with illegal immigration? No, that's not what I'm saying. Am I thinking objectively, practically, could America handle 7,000 illegal immigrants to come here for whatever fucking reason? Absolutely it could. Abso-fucking-lutely, with no doubt, right? But that's not what's in question here. That's just what President Trump is saying. That's not what's in question, is whether or not America can handle it. The question is whether or not people want them here. Yeah. That's the fucking question. And that's where the divide comes in. That's where the lies come in. That's where the rhetoric comes in. Because that's what it's about. That is what it's about. Is that, you know, like I said, that base, those people that have some stigma, some problem with immigrants just inherently because they're taking jobs they feel like other people should have, even though they don't want them. You know, it's a disconnect between
that's
all
one
three
aspect,
parties, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And it's just,
I mean, there is a lot of, you know, I will say non-racial, bigoted, biased, arguments against a large portion of, a large amount of immigration, especially illegal immigration. When you take into, when you take into account our welfare program and, if welfare was extended to, a person that is an illegal immigrant who doesn't pay the taxes to help support that system that they're on. There is a legitimate argument there, but like I said, this is one that's if that's even in the conversation at all, it's a tiny sliver of why most people are saying they don't want immigrants. And it usually comes down to that, they're taking our jobs, they're criminals. That's what the broader talking points are right now.
Scamming off the system, the birthright thing that we'll get into.
Yeah, the birthright thing. So let me ask you this before we kind of get off into because we probably need to kind of wrap that up a little bit. I don't think we want another 3.5 hour episode. But
what were you just talking about?
Oh, the burden on the welfare system and the legitimate arguments against immigration.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Because there are some.
Yeah. Before we moved on, I wanted to be very clear that I personally am fundamentally and adamantly against illegal immigration. Right? Yeah. Just as someone who bears as much respect as I do for the Constitution and the framing of America, fundamentally, wholeheartedly against illegal immigration. Right. None of what I'm saying, however the fuck you're going to try and spin it, is not an argument in favor of illegal immigration. Because I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right for anybody. I don't think anybody from America should be able to go where the fuck they want just because. It doesn't... I've talked about that probably on numerous fucking episodes.
Yeah, numerous times.
That's not how the fuck it works. Right? So I don't want anybody to try and misconstrue it that way. That I'm not in favor of illegal immigration. Right? But I also...
That you are in favor of illegal immigration.
Also have the most respect I think I could for a situation I have never been in myself. That I understand from what I understand about Honduras and from what some of these people are fleeing, I understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that I said to my wife. I understand why they're doing that. Do I think with the knowledge I have it's a good idea? No. Because I don't think that it will turn out well in the end. Like Isaiah said, they're not going to come here and get gunned down by fucking National Guard at the border. It's not going to happen. They're not going to just start mowing people down. There's no way. There's no fucking way that America could do that and get away with it and nothing happens.
No.
So that's not going to happen.
We literally have, the laws on the books that prohibit military, it's, what does it say? It's the Posse Comitatus Act.
Yes.
And I don't remember what year it was, back in the, I think, late 1800s when it was. And it is to limit the powers of the federal government in using federal military personnel to enforce domestic policies within the borders of the United States. That's why because we didn't quite touch on that yet, and that's the military aspect that,
and I didn't look that
Trump
much into
the Pentagon.
That's why I don't have that much up on it.
Because it's kind of, to me, the worst thing about it is I think it's a waste of military resources. Maybe, at least on the levels that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And essentially what this is the military is being called in to help assist, I guess, establish the infrastructure to help handle as many people as might be coming.
Because they sent another 5,000 troops down there, right? Is that
the last number I heard was like, we're talking almost 10,000 or something like that.
Yeah. And so,
a lot.
One of the figures I heard was, maybe not figures, but terms I heard was that it's more people that we have in Afghanistan or Iraq, right? Which is like, well, no shit. But that's also like, well, fuck. Why are they fucking down at the goddamn border in Mexico, Like, why do we have more people protecting our Mexican border than what the fuck is going on in the Middle East? That just, so it can kinda be interpreted either
makes
way.
You think, doesn't it?
That's what I'm saying. Like, the first time I heard it, I was like, well, no shit. Like, we're pulling out of there. Like, we're trying not to be in the Middle East anymore. But then I'm like, well, fuck. Why is there so many people down at the border though? Like, that's a lot of fucking people. So.
Yeah. And I mean, they're being down there to help, enforce the border. So I think there's
not to kill people.
No, there's some kind of structures, I think, that are going on, more fences or something, all that. But mostly it's all about establishing the logistical support and the infrastructure to make sure that the volume of people that are coming, because it's such a it's an anticipated high volume to be thrown at once.
Yes.
So they're talking about tent cities, essentially being set up if needed,
outside
all air
border,
conditioned and all this stuff. Yeah. To handle the amount of people. So that's what we're actually looking at.
Because it's potentially 7,000 people. Like I said, we're working. Yeah. We talked about the highest number because that's just the most conservative way to talk about this type of deal.
Yeah. It's like if the worst should happen.
Exactly.
This is what we were prepared.
Like I said, the newest number I think I said was like 3,500. It's about half that amount is the newest number.
Yeah.
3,500 reported on the 30th, and then a second group of 3,000 at the Mexican-Guatemala border. So
it'll be interesting to see what percentage of people will, kind of flake off and go establish along the road.
We should also say, right, because there's some weird fucking story coming from a lot of conservative media, right? That they're coming here and Democrats are going to try and bring them in so they can vote on Tuesday, right? They're not going to be here for potentially fucking months.
No.
Like between weeks and months, this caravan and the other ones will not arrive at the border. They're not coming here to sway the fucking election, nor can you vote if you are not a citizen of America.
It seems like basic common sense.
You can't believe you can't believe in voter suppression and also illegal immigrants voting at the same time. It doesn't work like that. Like
no.
That's not how
they
the fuck
kind of cancel each other
work?
out, don't you think?
We're stopping black people from voting, but god damn it, are we going to let the illegals vote when they get here? Like that doesn't make any fucking sense, dude.
It's because you're thinking about it logically, and it's dangerous, isn't it?
So they're not coming here to vote. They're not coming here to sway the election. They won't be here in time for the election.
The only reason, in my mind, that this is the issue right now is because the midterm vote is in less than a week from now.
Whipping up the base, dude. Whipping up, like I was saying, whipping up that fucking base. The longer he can vote, the stronger he can keep them hooked. The more he can try and get them
in the opposite side.
Yeah.
The harder you can fight against it. Yes. The loudest statement you can make against it is also winning over that side of the voters. So that's why it just goes to show you how powerful that fear tactic is.
And that's why he's out here
so powerful.
That's why he's talking about, like we said earlier, he's talking about the birthright citizenship, right? Because he did some interview where he's saying, it's like, well, birthright citizenship, how crazy, that we're the only country that does that. Okay, so immediately off the bat, 30 fucking countries have birthright citizenship.
At least.
Right.
That we know of.
At least 30 countries have birthright citizenship that if you have a kid that's born there, they are a citizen of that country. Fuck you, you're wrong.
And if you look at a map, the vast, vast majority of them are all on the American continent.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting, isn't it? It's almost like we have this one thread in common over essentially the entire Western Hemisphere.
Yep. Second lie of this same fucking interview, right? He said that, I know for a fact that you can change it with an act of Congress, but I'm being told that, I can do it with an executive order now. Hold the fuck on. That's part of the 14th goddamn amendment, right?
Indeed.
You certainly, as a president, no matter what the fuck Congress has turned over to you because they can't do their job, you cannot overturn part of an amendment just because you're the goddamn president. It doesn't work that way.
Good luck.
By no means, by no stretch of the imagination, can President Trump overturn the 14th Amendment because he's the president. No. It can't happen. It's not going to work. An executive order won't fucking happen. It won't work.
Yeah. And once again, worst case scenario, he writes that executive order, he signs it, he puts it out into the world. You know what happens?
Flipped.
It immediately stops at the courts.
Flipped.
The day within the hour of him signing that, it would be stopped at the courts, and it would immediately be, if it fought in the federal courts and then made its way through the appellate courts and then finally all the way up to the Supreme Court,
they would say, fuck that.
Yeah, they probably would refuse to hear the case because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, they would say, no, you guys rule on that again because that's absurd. We can see already that that's 14th Amendment.
Yeah. Even the homeboys, the quote unquote, the Gorsuch and the Kavanaugh, they would essentially vote the same way. and if you think they would completely tarnish their judicial careers to vote the opposite, I think that's not reasonable. But are you looking for the amendment?
Yeah.
It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state within they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. It's pretty cut and dry. I don't think you could spin that any way.
And it's been argued numerous times before. And it's been found already that people who are born here are afforded protection under the 14th Amendment. You know? Regardless of how you feel about it. It doesn't fucking matter. It's that's how it's been ruled. Well,
yeah.
And I can understand maybe not agreeing and trying to fight against that. And I'm going to try and find some cases that maybe I can argue and get that flipped the fuck over. And that's fine. But as it sits now, legally, that's how it is.
And I just want to be able to put the argument that I hear coming from the other side.
Do it.
And that is that there was no way the founding fathers could have anticipated the kind of surge or the amount of illegal aliens, as we call them, having kids in the United States. And that's what a lot of people fear again about immigration in general, is that illegal immigrants come in, they'll have kids, and now their kids are citizens, and now they'll be able to stay.
Well, the argument,
it's disingenuous, for one.
The argument that I heard from Ben Shapiro, right, who is practiced law in whatever type of way, right? The argument that he said that people have in favor of what President Trump said is that because of what the amendment says, that
those jurisdiction
who are, right,
thereof.
under the jurisdiction of, but if you're an alien here, then you're not under the jurisdiction because you're not a citizen here. So that wouldn't account towards your child because of whatever, which I can see objectively, rationally. I can follow the logic that goes into that, but I don't agree with
that's almost
with that
like
reading of it. But
that's almost like because I don't think necessarily he actually believes that.
But that's the argument.
But that is the argument, and he said you could argue that you could, but
and that's,
when you
I can
take
see
it to
the
when you take it in its entire context, it's very clear. And so you can boil it down. Okay, jurisdiction thereof. What could we break that down and use? Well,
and that's what
put
law
it in
is
context
about,
and know. Yeah. But that's like you said, that is what law is about.
Yeah,
and that's why I say I think on a legal level, you probably have a phrasing issue that you might be able to kind of update and fix, but the actual reasoning behind the 14th Amendment in full context is pretty clear.
Yeah.
And so maybe it would be a good thing if he did that, because maybe they'll point that out. It'll work its way up to the court system, and on the appellate courts they say, okay, well, we found a hole that maybe we should just tighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be good. But again, that's just knowing that
shit's not going to happen.
No, it's just not going to happen, man.
It's not. So that's when I feel secure, or if you're a proponent of that, then feel upset. It's not going to happen. That's President Trump does not have that power. He does not have the ability to take that amendment away from people.
And why, again, this is another of countless examples. Why is Congress not moving with every body that's there to start limiting executive power?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're in power still. I mean, you know how many... I can understand it's a hard political fight. But at the end of the day, that is the only moral thing to do if you have any respect for the Constitution and the foundation of our republic.
Well, I think there's an argument to be made that depending on the people who are voted in, right, either party has the potential to do that. Depending on who wins this election, they have the potential to begin to fight against that and start take those powers back from the executive. You know, depending if the whole election is won, like if it's a blue wave, like we talked about, you know, but the blue wave is consisting of Ocasio-Cortez's, you know, they're not going to be taking the power away from the president. That's not going to be the idea, you know.
No, then it's just let's get in power.
Right, but if you have people who are more on the Ben Sass side, but on the liberal side, on the Democratic side, you know, then you're going to get people who are like, listen, we need to start to take some of this back, and we need to look at how the government was established. Like, so,
and that's one of the things that's so terrifying about that rise, that populist left rise.
Yeah,
that is getting kind of heavily mixed in.
Right,
is right now, if you were to have a bill on the floor that started to limit the executive, you know, the power of the executive order, it would pass, I think, with flying colors.
Do you think
You'd have a good amount of Republicans that really don't like Trump. And you have so many Democrats, you would have every single Democrat doing it out of spite alone, I think.
Just to fight Trump.
Just to give it to him. And then knowing that if their, you know, the true goal was to have more executive power, if they're in power, then they'd be shooting themselves in the foot.
And I can agree with that, right? But you would have to have a strong enough majority to overturn the veto when it inevitably happens by President Trump. Because the guy who almost envisions the presidency as a dictatorship, right? Because it certainly can be classified that way, that the amount of power he feels like the presidency should have is way beyond what it has, right?
I'd say the amount of power the presidency has now is scarily close to it.
If that bill gets to his desk, right, approved by both the Senate and the House, he's vetoing that bitch.
It would die in the House, or it would die in the Senate.
So it gets kicked back, and then you have to have a strong enough 2/3 majority in both places to get that shit in as law. You know,
you might
gotta
be
have
able
a
to do
fucking banging majority to get that shit in.
Yeah.
Like,
and you know what's funny is that regardless of the numbers in the Congress, if that was to happen, if you had enough public support for limiting the president's powers, he wouldn't veto it because it would be a highly unpopular thing to do.
yes, that makes sense also.
But anyways, that would never happen.
No, I could see that.
That's my dreamland.
That's why I can see the potential in both ways, you know?
Yeah.
If this generation is fueled as much by, or this election, that's what I'm looking for, is fueled as much by youth as they say it's going to be, then both parties have the potential. The people to be voted in, depending on the candidates, because I don't know who the fuck is available across the United States. You know, I have no goddamn idea. The primaries are way too much to keep track of across the United States. I know who's available here, and I know that in a bunch of situations, Jordan and I voted opposite each other to counteract each other's votes because we're like, I don't know enough about this, so let's just vote opposite, and it doesn't fucking matter either way.
There you go.
So, but, you know, I mean, I know that I voted for Derek Kilmer.
You could just abstain, but that's fine too.
I don't know. It seemed fun.
It's more fun that way.
Yeah, I guess.
I'll give you that one.
That's just what we did. So
I'm kind of jealous that I didn't do that now.
Yeah, I don't know. That just seemed right. But so we just I didn't vote for anybody who was running unopposed because that feels weird, you know?
Yeah, I don't like
that. But
that.
anybody who was in an actual contested race, I would look at their shit, and if I couldn't pick somebody, then I would ask Jordan if she had picked somebody, and if she hadn't, then I'd be like, all right, well, let's just vote opposite, and it doesn't fucking matter.
There you go.
So for Senate, we voted opposite, and because I'm like, I agreed with what you said, then I'm like, these people are very cookie cutter on both sides, so I know. So I voted for the Republican, and Jordan voted for the Democrat.
Look at you.
We got the.
You're just trying to pad your record to look middle ground and neutral.
To make myself look a little more moderate.
No,
at least I've only voted like 3 times. You know.
There you go.
I've got a real short track record for people to look at.
Hey, I'll willingly admit. Mind you, take this with a grain of salt because I live in the Pacific Northwest and my vote had 0 impact in coming from where I live. But I used to just basically vote down the R side.
Right.
Because I didn't really know. I didn't follow it. And I was like, nah, man, my Republicans
Fuck
are in. Yeah. Bill O'Reilly, Fox News. You know? Which, again, I ain't going to pass nobody's blame on that.
Right.
maybe you shouldn't be trying to have an informed opinion.
Well, the first time I voted, I did the exact same thing. You know, like, well, why wouldn't I vote for all the Democrats? Like, I'm sure that they have the best interest in mind. Like,
yeah,
Republicans are greedy as fuck, so why would I do that?
And it's tough because, I mean, it should be easy to know, you know, what your representation stands for and who they are. It should be easy to know because again, that's how the country works. It's how it operates. It's how it's run.
Well, and
it's tough.
I can't speak for the rest of the states, right? But I know that voter pamphlet that we got in the mail, that you didn't get in the mail, but that most people got in the mail, was like a really good piece of literature. Like it was a lot of good information in there, very well informed. Like I really appreciated that. And
I've heard that from people that I know both on the left and the right.
Huge fan of that fucking piece of literature that I got in the mail. So I am absolutely a proponent of what the state put out. I think it was great.
Heck yeah. I'll pay money for that.
Yes. I have no problem with my taxes going to a good voter's pamphlet.
Yeah. You know what else I don't mind paying money for? The fire department.
Yes.
Man.
I also voted for the fire department.
Heck yeah. I'll give you more money, man.
Fuck yeah.
I want you guys to have the top of the line training and equipment because you're a first responder. And if you are at a first responder situation and you need some...
Well, you have good shit.
You know, if you don't have if the latest up-to-date piece of equipment could have saved your life. But I didn't vote for that. I didn't give them enough money. They didn't have it in the budget. Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Now you did. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I want you to have good stuff. That's for sure.
And I've had a lot of family, civil service, stuff like that. It's like, I know those people deserve more money, bro.
Yeah.
Kind of like teachers for the most part.
More dollars.
That's a more gray area.
Those are hard jobs.
They are. Very hard.
Fuck being a teacher. I used to want to be a teacher, you know? And
so did I at one point.
Just got a little bit older. And I think I probably could for like a certain age group, you know, but... They couldn't be too old and couldn't be too young. Like
almost like, you know, you would try to teach people how to think logically and look at stories logically and, you know, try to kind of like what you do right now.
It would probably have to be like a junior high type of age where they're still like malleable enough, but they're like awkward enough.
Yeah.
Where most of them aren't assholes.
Okay.
You know? Like, because in high school, there's a lot of kids that are assholes. But in junior high, they're a little more reserved, you know, because they're still...
They don't know. They haven't pushed the boundaries enough to know what they can get away with.
Exactly. So they're still a little bit more conservative. And I think that I probably would fuck around a little more with junior high, you know, where I could still pick out like the kids that needed help and be like, listen, like it'll be okay. Like,
it'll be okay, bro.
That's always why I thought about being a teacher is because I had such a hard time in school just because of like who I am as a person. Like, like both being super loud, but also being a very bold personality. And, like I smoked weed when it wasn't cool, you know, and like just a lot of little stuff like that like I had a couple of really good friends, but not a lot of friends. I knew a lot of people, knew all kinds of people because, you know, there was a lot of people that like, especially when I was selling weed that like, you know, Donovan's the weed guy. And like, that's, you know, that's like, and when I was in high school, especially junior, senior year, like Donovan's the weed guy. Like if you want to know about weed, go and fucking talk to Donovan because he's the weed guy. Like he knows about fucking pot.
I mean, so, according to the Shane Show, you are the crazy weed guy.
Oh my God.
I haven't thought about that in a while.
And so that's like, I mean, that's a thing that, you know, I carried with me for the long time that, you know, it's a thing that really bothered me. And I still kind of carry a little bit of a soft spot now about today. That like when I was in junior high, I was smoking weed, you know, and kids were like, why are you fucking doing that? Like that's, you know, fucking bad kids smoke weed and that's weird and blah, blah, blah. And then I got to like 10th grade, 11th grade and those same kids were like, oh yeah, but do you want to like, you know, fucking smoke a bowl together and like do whatever? I'm like, fuck you, man. Like I've been smoking weed for like 4 years now and you talk shit and now you're trying to get high, you know?
You used to make fun of me and now you think I'm cool.
Exactly. And then the kids that I was like, okay, yeah, let's smoke, you know, like let's meet up and we'll smoke or whatever. Like it would be me and like 3 other kids, you know, and we would smoke one bowl between the 4 of us and they're all fucking giggling and stupid. And I'm like, listen, I'm barely high. Like, where's the rest of the weed at? Like, what the fuck is going on? You know, like, man, I'm blazed. What are you talking about? And like, this was a waste of my time. Like, why did I even come out here? You know? And I couldn't stand people who couldn't handle their shit when they were getting high, you know, because when I first started smoking, I was smoking with like my sister and like my older brother David and like their friends, you know, who are all 6-7 years older than me. So I wasn't allowed to act a fool. Like you can't do that, you know, because I'm kicking it with 4 other people that are, you know, at the time I was, let's say 13 years old. So they're 20, 21 years old, you know, I'm not allowed to act like a fucking idiot because like we're out here doing shit, you know? So when I got older, I didn't have like any type of tolerance for people acting like that.
Yeah,
you know, just because that's how I was raised, like was to not act like that.
I'm the same way with people that can't handle their alcohol.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because of my time as a sailor and that part of that lifestyle is pretty heavily represented. And, you know, even before that, and, you know, I kind of got into that partier type drinking pretty early. And so there was a point where, and I'm just a big dude too, so I can handle more alcohol. Because I used to be bigger, a lot bigger. I had like 60 more pounds on me at one point, which I weighed myself the other day. I'm like kind of plateaued now. I'm like at 191. And I'm feeling good about 190-ish. I like
the
that.
Sweet spot.
Yeah, but I mean, I get so upset with people that will hang out, you know, get drunk quick, and then they turn into somebody who
fool.
You just, you know, violent, especially with alcohol. You get a lot of like stupid drunks that start
aggressive,
getting yeah. I mean,
wrestling
and I've
and
had
shit.
Like good friends that, you know, the other you know, we'd have to like kind of outcast and be like, dude, we don't want to go drinking with you because you turn into a complete asshole. You're not fun to be around, and we have to babysit you, and then you try to fight us all the time. It's like, no. You're a great dude when you're sober, but we're not going to drink with you anymore.
I don't wrestle with drunk dudes.
No.
I don't do that.
I can kind of relate to what you're talking about.
I don't wrestle with drunk dudes, and I don't body box my friends. You know, like that was a big thing, especially when I was younger, that people were like, well, let's just fucking like body box, you know, let's just like do whatever. I'm not doing that. Like, because
not even a little bit.
On the off chance that I get clipped in the face, I'm going to get super pissed. Like, and I don't want to fuck with that. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not interested. I'm not entering into this. Like, I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to fuck around. Like, let's just hang out. You know, I don't want to do this. Like, that's not, I've never been into that. Like, and
all I want to do was come hang out, chill.
Yeah.
Chat it up.
And I'm
not trying to get stupid.
I'm not afraid of confrontation, but I'm afraid of unneeded confrontation with my friends. Like, I just don't want to fuck with that. Like, I just would rather
might
just
get a little too aggressive.
You know what I'm saying? Especially if you've been drinking and shit. Like, I'm not. I would rather not. Like, I would rather you find someone else who wants to wrestle because I don't want to fuck with that.
I don't play around. That's how people get hurt, bro.
Yeah, no, fuck that.
That was a great segue. That was a good relief chat.
Yeah.
So I hope we helped you out, Isaiah, a little bit.
Yes. Any other questions? Let us know. Anything we didn't cover that you wanted to know, and we can look it up, and we'll get back to you either on the Twitters or next week's episode, depending on what the jam is. So.
Yeah, man. So how do you want to approach this? I'll kind of give this one to you.
Okay, so on Sunday, there was a report that came out from the New York Times that there was a memo circulating through the Department of Health and Human Services where they intended to narrow, because I don't want to say redefine, right? Narrow the definition of gender to, I have quotes here, defined sex as either male or female, unchangeable, and determined by the genitalia a person is born with.
Yeah.
Right? And the idea is that it is in an attempt to set that definition out so that they can use it in effect of Title IX and other, like, dealing with Obamacare, like a pre-existing condition and stuff like that, so that being transgender would not be covered under like healthcare, you know, because it's not considered a.
And I think it is important to understand this all is directly related to Title IX, which is it's the what do you call that? The anti-discrimination laws that we have. You see, back in tolerant educated in 1972 is a federal law that states no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance.
And so this is being seen by many, right, as an attempt, and even by like a lot of the headlines that I've seen, as an attempt by the Trump administration to redefine transgender out of existence, which I do not personally agree with.
It is completely disingenuous.
That is a very extreme version of this, right?
Yes.
So before we continue, I want to give my personal opinion off of just that piece of the memo, right? Because this is something you and I have talked about at fucking nauseum for, numerous times, right?
Mostly in the early episodes, I think.
I am 100% in favor of the idea of defining as like the sex that you are born with, right?
Yes.
The idea of it being unchangeable, I think, neglects a growing portion of society, right? Because I have, for as long as I can remember, been in favor of not only male or female, but definitely a third category that goes to transitioning. If you are in some way, if you do not feel like you've been born in the right place, or the right body, and you need to transition over, I think that you should be able to do that. And I think if you've had like a top surgery and not a bottom surgery, and you got to fill out a census or whatever, you should be able to say, well, I was born a woman, but I'm on my way to being a man. Like I'm halfway there, I'm saving up a little more cash and I'm getting there. You should be able to say I'm transitioning, yes. I'm on my way to being a man because I am a man. That's how I identify. I think that to neglect the way that people identify is not cool. And they're saying that the only way that it can be changed on your birth certificate or anything like that is based off of genetic testing, right? And even if you're going to change your penis into a vagina, that's not going to change your DNA, and that's not going to allow those people to identify the way that they have paid thousands of dollars to identify, because that's the whole idea. If you've transitioned from a male into a female or the vice versa, you've paid a lot of fucking money to do that. You truly believe that that's what you've got going on. And for you at that point to not be able to identify as what you identify as, I don't think is right.
Okay.
That's my beef. Because regardless of whether or not I agree or what the fuck ever, if that's your jam, that's your fucking jam. I feel like that's your right as an American citizen to whatever, to reverse yourself to what the fuck ever. That's not my deal, I don't agree with the 75 different gender identifiers making up fucking words and terms and shit. That I'm not down with, right? That's why I said I'm down with warranting that people don't always fit into two categories. There are differences between people that allow them to do other shit.
And I believe I've heard, evolutionary biologists talk about that in a very similar way. It's the fact that, yes, the XY chromosome, the XX chromosome, yes, they define the two different majority categories, but there are indeed some that don't quite fit into either way.
Abnormalities.
And that is a different argument than gender pronouns.
Yes.
Because you're talking about it
that's
on
language.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is very important because I think, at least in all the articles that I read about this thing, especially the original one from October 21st.
Yeah.
They continue to change out sex and gender.
Yes.
As all these two different things. And sex is a scientific term. It is a scientific definition that puts you into this category or that category. And there is indeed scientific evidence that proves that, yes, there are some people that aren't.
Yeah.
But let's say the ratios of the people that would be in that, say, non-binary, we'll just make it simple, we'll call it non-binary, is far, far, far less than the people that identify as some other non-binary gender.
Absolutely.
And so there is a complete legitimate argument to be made from an evolutionary biological standpoint that there should be maybe a box there.
Yes.
But whether or not you should be able to, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what the reason is behind these things. Because every, reason why, like if I'm going to transition to a woman and I check that transition box or non-binary box or whatever, there's now all of a sudden, you remember the bathroom incident?
Yeah.
Where there was, you had to have, now you have to have all these different bathrooms and stuff like this. You start to run into those types of problems where you have an infrastructure that isn't built for a third, non-binary or whatever. Yeah. And so then you start running into real life logistical problems versus, on a societal level, on a scientific level, it says one thing, but, social implementation is one thing. How we look at the differences between men and women. We have kind of a, even in today's world, we still have kind of a prudish existence. We have a prudish society. Mm-hmm. And so people get really worked up about like what bathroom to use or, I like these, you go to Seattle and they have those the big open bathrooms essentially where there's a big old, sink station in the middle and then it's just stalls.
Right.
What's wrong with that, I guess. But
well, so I guess I think about it like this, right? Where if you have like a large enough population of people that are requesting that or that's a problem, then you should have a third bathroom. And I know,
or we should all just have unisex bathrooms,
or whatever. There should be something that's like it's not a fucking. I will be the first to admit that if there's a time where I've gone into a store or some shit and the men's bathroom is closed for whatever reason, I'll go into the women's bathroom and I'll go pee. I don't care.
We do that at my office all the time.
It's not a problem for me, and I don't feel uncomfortable if I walk out of the stall and a woman is there and she's like, "What are you doing in here?" Being like, "The men's bathroom is closed. I'm not trying to be a creep. I just had to go pee. I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. Like I got nothing to do with this. Really, truly, I'm just trying to get shit done and get out. Like that doesn't. I don't know.
But when you look at how
as long as no one's trying to peep on your fucking kid or peep on you or fuck with you, it doesn't matter. Why does it matter what fucking bathroom I want to use?
Exactly.
And why does it matter?
Why are we so hung up on? Why do we have a men's and a women's bathroom? Should we just have bathrooms?
I can understand, I can understand concerns about kids because kids take advantage of shit. Kids do sus shit that is just whatever. Kids. I know that if I was 17 assholes. And I was like, well, maybe I can go to the girl's bathroom and see fucking some girl's vagina or fucking boobs for some whatever reason because maybe I'm 17 and think that girls show their boobs in the bathroom when they're going to pee. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe I would go in there, but kids do stupid shit. Like the chances of grown adults who are reasonable people who don't have some type of mental illness fucking around like that is super low, and I understand. I totally 100% understand the concern of like the bathroom thing and people taking advantage. I don't trust people. I don't. Just as like a general rule, I do think most people are good, but I don't trust people off the bat like that. Like,
I think the people that are going to do that are going to do it anyways, and they're doing it now.
So I totally understand, but that's one of those things that's like, it's none of my fucking business, As long as you're just doing your shit, it's none of my fucking business. If you're being creepy, I'm going to tell somebody and be like, yo, this guy was weird as fuck in the bathroom with my kid, and I'm not cool with that, Other than that, that's not my business. It's also not illegal to be an asshole or to be a fucking weirdo. You're just a weirdo. That's unfortunate. Nobody wants to hang out with you or be around you, but it's not illegal to be a weirdo. Like, I don't... Like, just mind your own fucking business.
Exactly.
Like, just mind your own fucking business.
So to kind of bring it back to more of, because I kind of got with the bathroom thing, I kind of got a little sidetracked.
Look what you fucking did.
I know. I got you all heated up.
Yeah.
Because it's just really fun to do. But again, okay, so we go back to this, the effect that it might have on Title IX, discrimination laws.
Well, in Title IX, people talk about a lot when it has to do with like sports in colleges, right? Like sports law comes up, and then like the sexual assault cases comes up a lot. And I know that Case Bowles has a real stick up his ass about Title IX when it comes to sports because when he was in college, like when it had to do with fundraising, you know, like both the softball team and the baseball team would have to do fundraising. And in his particular experience, his personal experience, the men's baseball team would do way more fundraising than the softball team, but they would split the funds right down the middle because it has to be equal for both sides. You know, Casey doesn't feel like that's fucking fair because if they're raising 6 times as much money, why are they not getting 6 times as much money for their fucking, you know, for their sport? Because that's what they raised, you know? Why should the girls get that money because they didn't work for it?
Because,
you know,
because the education system is all designed, at least today, on equity.
So,
and that's, you know, and that's again, I mean, I don't necessarily mind this whole situation because I understand the core behind them trying to do this. And that's because of the, you know, the article points out the expansion of during the Obama administration to kind of, and this is the type of things that it, you know, that people are upset about is the fact that, you know, if I go out there and work really, really hard and Case Balls goes out there and they do this massive fundraising, that's for a different thing than softball. And why should their money be spread across the board just because it all falls under the education department? I can totally see that. And I think that's kind of what the intent behind this change is doing, because they're defining essentially what they're actually doing is defining the term sex as a binary male or female. But I think, and so again, going back to your argument about probably having a third category. Yeah. You know, this is all, it all kind of relates to statistics and where, you know, the equity stuff kind of comes into play and stuff like this. But in actual discrimination law, I don't think it's going to, you know, because if you have to pick one box or another, we have equal rights under the law for both men and women. So it's almost purely a social issue that shouldn't be reflected in law. If we want to have that third category put on it, that's fine. If we all decide that that's what we want, we should be able to do that. And then we'll have a whole slew of new statistics on how our society works and what people are doing and all this stuff. Because so many, you know, we'll have a whole nother category to run studies on because it's not just male or female now. But as far as equal protection under discrimination laws, as long as the discrimination laws are being equally enforced and, you know, sex is not an issue like it shouldn't be, because it seems pretty obvious that no one should be discriminated against based off of their sex, whatever it is. That was the whole purpose of this.
But that's based on how you're defining it, right? Because if you're defining it this way that they're talking about, then it is negating a fair amount of people who don't fit into one of those two categories, right? Because they're not establishing a third one. And the most recent arguments, right? Because I have
if you look at it.
Wait, so check this, right? Okay. Because I have here, there was an argument and a decision by Judge Reed O'Connor in the Federal District Court in Fort Worth, Texas, right? That Congress did not understand sex to include gender identity, right? Yes. But there's been a bunch of new arguments since then that, and I have this here in this New York Times article, there's been a bunch of other arguments since then that were expressed in a memo to the administration, that it is totally understood that sexual identity is involved in sex. And I think that's the problem that people have here, is that by establishing it with two things and saying that it's unchangeable unless defined by some type of genetic markers, that ignores this group of people that I think needs to be acknowledged. And I don't think, again, I'm not arguing for the 75 different gender identifiers, right? And that's not for you, because I know you understand that, but that's for everybody. That I'm not saying it needs to be broadened to 75, right? But narrowed to the point that it needs to be acknowledged that not everybody fits into those two.
It does.
And even if you do transition, right, you won't be able to prove it genetically. Because if your DNA is drawn and you have been fully transitioned, top surgery, bottom surgery, from a man to a woman or a woman to a man, your DNA, your chromosomes will still reflect what you were born as.
Okay.
You won't be able to change that. That's the problem with this.
If every person's sex is determined by genetic, testing.
By this definition, it would be. Well, that's the problem.
Based off of the genitalia you're born with. It's not necessarily run a genetic test on you when you're born and, okay, you are officially...
But if you start to transition or you start to identify something other than that, then it's based off of, that's what it says, unless otherwise described by, or unless otherwise dictated by some type of genetic testing. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. So that's when it's valid.
So you would have to...
If you're identifying as something else, then you have to be able to back that up with DNA testing that you are that. Mm-hmm. But even if you are transitioning and you have fully transitioned, your DNA is not going to reflect that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. I think if you're transitioning, if you truly feel that way, or you have fully transitioned, you should be able to identify as that. That's your right. You know, this is not going to allow people to do that. At least by what's being put out right now. The memo has not been released. So all we can go off of is what's being reported, right? Yeah. But by what's been reported, and it's quotes here. So if they're wrong, the New York Times is going to be fucked, right? So I'm liable to believe
because these aren't even because this isn't from like the op-ed pages. These are actual.
It's from a legitimate politics article. So I'm liable to believe what they're saying here. Mm-hmm. You know, but if that's the case, they're fucked. So by what they've reported here, people who are transitioning or plan to transition or identify as something other than that are not going to be represented by this.
So the true fear is that now somebody that is transitioning from a male to a female, vice versa, is now subject to legal discrimination.
Not only that, it's ignoring the most recent legal arguments that have been put out. And that's what this other memo that was sent to the administration said, that all these other legal groups, including like Lambda Legal and other groups like that, have Lambda Legal have appointed to other court cases. In a legal memo presented to the administration, a coalition of civil rights groups wrote, quote, "The overwhelming majority of courts to address the question since the most relevant Supreme Court precedent in 1998 have held that anti-transgender bias constitutes sex discrimination under federal laws like Title IX." Mm-hmm. So that's the most recent finding. After Judge O'Connor, after everything else, since 1998, that's the most recent finding. This definition that plans to be put out by the Trump administration ignores that. That's illegal.
Well, because that would
maybe not illegal, but it doesn't follow precedent that's been set.
Yeah, which is, again, that's not necessarily atypical because precedent is broken.
But to set guidelines without it following precedent, that is atypical.
That is.
Because at that point,
but it's not impossible.
No, not impossible, but it certainly doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Well, no. In the actuality of it possibly, it being possible to do this and actually having an effect, it is indeed possible. Is what I'm saying. So it's not like in the immigration talk, it's not like that extra executive power that with birthright citizenship. It's not the same argument there. This is a very different argument being made on a different legal case, much more recent legal cases. But these legal cases, I would say, as far as precedent goes, I think most of these legal cases are relatively new.
Yes.
Right?
So the precedent is new.
Precedent is new, which you can overturn a precedent that does, especially the shorter time period the precedent has been set, the easier it is to overturn.
And I can see that, but it's also the most recent one that's been found. So if not enough time has gone by, then those people who found that may still be seeing things the same way.
Well,
the same
especially
group
because
of people is in power.
The problem hasn't
in that position.
Hasn't been in the legal realm for a decade, maybe at the most. Right? That would you say 98?
1998.
Boom, decade, nailed it. So at least a decade,
2 decades,
maybe longer. Oh my God, it's 2018.
20 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
So do you think that this then could possibly be the next thing that brings up precedent and challenges this precedent that's been set since 1998? Because there's no way this just goes with no conflict. There's no way it just goes.
Any kind of controversial order like that would find itself in an appeals court very, very quickly, much like the travel ban and, and so it would be interesting to see what the courts would have to say about it. I'm not a big fan of legislation through the judicial branch, but when you have a consistent amount of controversial political topics,
well, and if you're not sure it's constitutional or not, it has to go through the judicial branch.
Yeah, and so we have a lot of that these days.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. The real world implications of defining sex scientifically. I mean, I'm not going to argue against that.
No,
but I would.
No, and I would not either.
And especially when you look at the actual scientific data that there is obviously a thing there, but that if you add that third column and then make people justify it, the number of people that meet the scientific data to support that third column, that non-binary status, is going to be greatly less than the people that want to do it. Because, like you said, there's a lot of people that transition that are not in that actual middle ground. And that is a societal level thing that we should just accept.
But the amount of people that are identifying as something other than just male or female is growing rapidly. So whether or not it is legitimate or whatever, that population is growing. The people that do not identify as one of those two binary categories.
Huge. So and again, this is of course, it's not reflective, I'm sure, of that genetic makeup. But just to close this out, really, where I land on this is I support the idea of a middle column, like a non-binary check mark.
Absolutely.
Strictly for statistical reasons.
All the whatever the fuck you're calling yourself.
You shouldn't have to justify what gender you are, whatever. As long as nobody, period, is being discriminated against for what they are or who they are, unless, of course, you're a criminal, then, you have certain discriminatory things, but
a little bit of guidelines.
I mean, when you're talking about actual, hard discrimination, like not getting hired for a job or something like that.
Yeah.
But again, that should be the responsibility of the citizenry to just accept people for who they are. Who gives a shit what they call themselves? Are they going to work for you and make you money? Hire them. Who cares if they have purple hair and,
don't be an
talk
asshole.
Like a voice like this, but they call themselves Jan. Who cares, man?
As long as it doesn't interfere with what you got going on.
Yeah.
I don't think, because like I said, I'm not a proponent either. I don't agree. I don't like the idea of the made up shit and people impressing things on me that I don't agree with. I don't like that idea, but also as long as you're not a dick about it, it's none of my fucking business. You know? The same, I don't know. It's the same argument, man. It's none of my fucking business. Like, and it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so if real world implications, I think you should probably have that third category. It sounds kind of, I don't necessarily know. Yeah. As long as you're not trying to prove scientifically that you are that. I don't care if you're a transgender individual. I don't care.
Just to respect people, I think.
Yeah. Why? Why, nobody, regardless of what sex or gender or whatever, they should not be, I'm good. I got a thing now after. I gotta maintain.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, I don't think anybody should be discriminated against for who they are on the outside.
No.
Who gives a shit?
Or the inside.
And I think, honestly,
respect yourself.
I am not what I would call a progressive person.
No.
But,
I would not describe you as
that. But I don't fight against change because change is constant and inevitable. It happens all the time.
It's generally a good thing.
You can't sit there and fight back against the inevitable.
Yeah.
And to try to do that, I think is disgusting because, for one, we're not the same people that we were back when the people that are in power, and they're all, ancient. We're not the same society that they were when they were our age.
Yeah.
Not even close. Unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Completely unrecognizable. And so to try to assume like they would know best and to try to define all these things politically, and it's, just say that you can't discriminate against people. Period. I mean, it seems pretty cut and dry when you read the 14th Amendment, when it comes to citizenship. I mean, why shouldn't that same logic apply over here?
Doesn't seem like a lot of question to be left there.
No, but I don't know how much discrimination there was before the new, Title IX was expanded, but you certainly saw.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm not sure because I wasn't paying attention back then, so I can't really talk about it. But how much actual discrimination was there going on?
Yeah,
any is too much, but and the other thing that Title IX only applies if you're an institution that receives federal funding.
Yes.
Get off the tit of the government and you can do whatever you want. It drives me insane.
Get off the tit of the government.
Yes. You know what? You shouldn't have a business model based off of funding from the government.
Yeah.
You should look at that. The department, education department is one thing. At least the non-university level. Because once you get to the university level and you have tuition and all these other charges, I mean, they should be run like, well, I don't care. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know how to run the universities. Come on. But I mean, if you don't want to prescribe to these things, then put yourself in a position to get off of that government funding, umbilical cord. If you don't need it, step away. And that was actually you remember Larry Sharp, that crazy dude that just went off on Joe Rogan and tanked his entire political career?
I was not a fan.
Man, it's because of stuff like that, where if you didn't put yourself in a position to rely on funding from the federal government, you could still get it from the state government. There's nothing. I mean, you can have state laws that offer the same protections that you could be looking for that you don't have to rely on the federal funding for.
Yeah.
And that could come from a local electorate that can decide that it's important enough to do that. I love that tweet. Oh, get off the tit of the government and you wouldn't have to worry about it. I like that. I want that on my tombstone now. Libertarian through and through, baby.
Fucking hilarious.
I may come off. I know if my brother was listening, which I know he doesn't listen, probably because it would infuriate him.
What the fuck, Chad? But dude,
I have a very deep-rooted kind of libertarian, mind.
We're not to fucking PF Chang's together and you're not even going to listen to the podcast? Fuck, dude.
He's a busy man. He's got a lot of Crowder to listen to.
Watch you drink all your scotch and shit and you're not even going to fucking listen? What the fuck, man?
Don't say scotch. What's funny? He might listen and he might call me out on my bullshit.
You fucking better, Chad.
Support the fam, bro.
Yeah. Chad, if you're listening to this, acknowledge it in some type of way. Tell your brother or fucking retweet it or something. Because what the fuck? If you don't, sincerely disappointed.
Hate.
Yeah.
Fuck? People are different, bro. Some people don't want their views challenged.
Whatever, bro.
You know what I mean?
Don't be a little bitch, Chad. Don't
call that on the podcast.
Don't be a little pussy, Chad.
He has asked to come on before.
Really?
Yeah.
I met a girl at the weed store today that just about pooped her pants when I told her that we did this podcast and was more than interested in coming in to watch us do the podcast.
Who is this person?
She works at the weed store.
Did you give her a card?
Yeah, I went to leave and I was like, "Hey, can I give you one of these business cards?" It's like I do a podcast and it's blah 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 and all the building bridges and all the shit that I say. And she was like, "That's fucking so rad! I would love
building bridges out here."
Yeah, she was like, "I would love to just come and sit in if I can. That would be awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. I don't give a shit." Yeah. She's like, "Where do you do that?" And I'm like, "My homeboy's house in Kingston." He lives in we just have an area that we fucking do it at. She's like, "Yeah, no, that would be awesome." Wrote her phone number down on my receipt and shit. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna follow you and just hit me up if I can come on." Sure, it's really not a big deal. It's a right now, it's a thing that we do in someone's house.
Yeah,
it's just a thing. But it was funny. I like that shit. But Zeke is gonna be on when he comes in December. I'm really, really excited about that. I've been talking to the Upper Left boys, seeing about that.
I've got some interesting interview type situations that people are interested in doing.
Yeah.
hopefully we can roll that in somehow.
Your fucking dog is so cute. It's too
Isn't
much.
she?
It's too much. I'm distracted. She's so cute. But that's pretty much all I have as far as it goes to the gender thing. I don't know if you have really anything else there.
No, man, I just want to tie that up. It's a difficult one because, for one, I don't necessarily know if I totally disagree with it because it's based off of science. But I see on the social side, it's problems. And so the real life implications, I'd almost have to kind of wait and see how it plays out. Is there going to be a rise of discrimination? Because I don't feel like there would be.
Yeah.
Especially with the social climate. People are still going to continue to get, called out for not baking gay cakes and, all that. The social justice world is still going to be just as strong.
Yeah.
And public pressure is very strong, especially in a business sense. So as long as there ain't no discrimination going on the federal level, let's just, we'll figure it out as a society. We're grown-ups. We'll find the path, man.
Yeah.
There's enough like-minded people that aren't, some people are going to be like, well, kill the trannies. And we're going to be like, well, no. Don't go away. Let's talk about this. Let's see. I want some concerns. What are you worried about? What can we make this right?
Yeah.
What's up? But maybe I just have faith in humanity. Finally. I've reached the goal. I now have faith in America.
So, do you want to go to the grab bag?
Let's do it, baby.
Cool. So I have to go pee. So do you have some in there that like doesn't require my input? That's just like an update thing, or like about the bomber or the shooter, Squirrel Hill?
I want to talk. Like we can talk about my blog post for a minute.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go pee, and you talk about that.
Word.
I'll be back, and we can
because I do kind of want a little bit of your input towards the end.
Yes.
So
I'll be quick.
All right. So last Thursday, I went ahead and put out a blog post. It was my week. Don and I, if you haven't noticed, have been taking turns. We each do a blog post once a week. Or we take turns doing a blog post every other week. There you go. Boom. And I remember last episode we had discussed the Squirrel Hill shooting. We didn't really discuss it, but it had happened the morning of the cast. So it was last Saturday, the 27th of October. And we didn't feel comfortable kind of reporting any numbers. They were still kind of all over the place, and we didn't really want to do anything because it had just happened. And so I wrote through the blog this week. The first half of the blog is kind of a small article about what actually happened. And so just to kind of sum it up, I don't want to give it all away because I want to encourage people to go to saltofthestreets.com, click the little media tab, and there's our blog. And that's where also you find anything that we do there. The post to the links for the podcast are there, to the YouTube video, all that stuff. And so anyways, I break it down. It turns out at the end of it, 11 people were killed. I want to say 6 others were injured, including a few police officers. There was a 46-year-old, the 46-year-old male suspect who was a long-haul trucker, came into the synagogue early morning of Saturday, a Jewish synagogue in a place called Squirrel Hill, right outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he began shooting. And we had an active shooter situation. He later actually surrendered to the authorities, and then kind of immediately how it works with those, they get jailed, they go through a very quick kind of arraignment and sentencing and all that good stuff. And so he's in jail, and he's actually the possibility of facing the death penalty, particularly because it became very apparent very quickly that this was indeed a hate crime, an anti-Semitic hate crime, and finding out now that it's one of the, if not the worst anti-Semitic hate crime committed in the history of the United States. But then, so I kind of sum it up, and you'll note there that I wrote a factual article. Mind you, there was, it was kind of lacking in emotion and narrative, and I just wanted to be able to get the facts out there, sum it up real quick, and I did it without releasing the suspect's name or posting a picture of his face.
Yeah.
And so then the second half of the blog, I decided to attack the media in general for continuing once again to show the names and faces of these people and give them that kind of coveted spot in the infamy realm. It makes them, famous is the opposite of infamous. Famous is, you're recognized at a very popular level for doing something good,
right? Perceived
to be good, and then infamy is the opposite. But I still don't understand, and we talked about it last week actually when Ben Shapiro came out. I think it was, I don't remember which shooting it was. I want to say maybe it was the
it was a Florida one,
Florida high school, where he finally took the stance to not release the names and
Philly D was on it way before that.
Yeah, way before that. But we've seen more and more people in the so-called alternative media jumping on that bandwagon more and more. People agree with that. We feel like it's the moral thing to do. And to this day, we still have, what I dub the quote-unquote real media outlets, the way that they perceive themselves. And they don't seem to have any problems doing this. And I think there's something fundamentally screwed up about that.
Well, so I think...
And I understand that there's a million reasons why they do that. But it is not necessary, and I feel like we should have the moral high ground and not give these people what they want. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off base, but it seems, we need to remember... And I wrote it in there. We need to remember the people whose lives were stolen away. We need to remember the impact that it had on the community, when, where, what the effect was, why it happened, all this stuff. But we don't need to know the pieces of shit name that did this. We should forget them forever because that's such a heinous act in our society. You should be banished from all existence for committing that.
And I think that that's the only thing that I would push back on, right?
Please do.
Is that I still remember Ted Bundy's name, and I still remember the Zodiac Killer and Gary Ridgway and BTK and all these people. And
serial killers.
Yeah. And I would argue, you could make the same argument for a serial killer that you could for somebody who commits a school shooting or a mass shooting, that it's the same amount of mental sickness that does one. If not worse, for someone who's a serial killer who goes a length of time murdering people in, merciless ways as opposed to walking in somewhere and just shooting a bunch of people, fucking Jeffrey Dahmer, who's cutting people up and eating them. Should we not forget that guy's name if we're going to forget somebody's name? And that's the only time I think that I would push back is that it, and probably just because of my own personal interest, because my own personal interest in whatever weird shit that I'm like, and I feel that, because I agree that I also don't spread these people's names with you, but I don't know that they should be forgotten in history forever,
That's true.
I think that's the only thing. You do bring a valid
point. You do bring a valid point.
That's the only thing, though.
Yeah. And so essentially then I'll go ahead and shift and say, like, during the, a journalist.
Like the mourning process.
Yes. During, the journalist that's, breaking the story.
Yeah.
All this stuff, after all the investigations have done, maybe, but I don't know. Just
say that they have been identified.
Turn it into propaganda,
we know who it is.
Yeah. And then, I'm not opposed to documentaries and, but.
Well, and if there's some relevant details like this, the guy's if he's a fucking white supremacist or some shit, you don't need to put his name out. Be like, he has been identified. He is a known white supremacist.
Yeah.
Like, makes sense. Killed 30 black people. Like, now we understand why that might have happened instead of just, why would this person kill 30 people? Like,
Well, that's why I talk about understanding the reason why.
Right.
But yeah, maybe that is a step too far about lost to history and all that.
But that's the only thing. I think that's the only thing that, like I said, that I disagree with because I read it the other day.
Yeah, so it's almost like I just don't want them to be turned into, I don't want them to be propagandized.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think that's more probably the core of my position.
I think I think that's more, like you said, dealing with a time period type of deal. That when it first happens, we don't need to be talking about who they are, because who they are doesn't fucking matter. You know, who that person is doesn't fucking matter, because they just took a bunch of people's lives, and that's who matters. You know, is the people's whose lives were taken from them and from the people around them. You know, but after that, you can't forget about those people, because those people and their history and the way that they were raised and their experiences are important, because they can help you identify other people in the future and help you understand other people in the future.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like
that's the only area I would
There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And it's just being done the completely wrong way.
Yes.
You know, I did talk about in the blog post how there's a period, there's a week-long period after a death or a tragedy that takes place in the Jewish community called sitting Shiva. And it's a whole week-long, you know, period of mourning, where you remember all these things, and it's kind of a hauntingly beautiful thing. It's very traditional. You see it a lot in, I think, Spanish cultures too. Very similar things, and you know, it's been interesting to watch. One of the questions, it was kind of linked to the grab bag portion of this, was, you know, I talked about it, I think, before we did the show, but like I haven't seen much in the way of the kind of standard post-mass shooting gun debate. Yeah. And it's very interesting to me.
I think this one was more focused on the rhetoric, like you said earlier, that surrounded it, because that was kind of the bigger deal, is not that. And I don't think that the type of guns that he used has been talked about that much. Like, I heard something on one of the BBC podcasts that one of the survivors, who also was a Holocaust survivor, had served in like the Israeli military or something. He was an Israeli paratrooper. That's what the fuck he was. And he said that it sounded like automatic weapon fire to him. But that's like the only thing that I've heard about the type of weapons that were used, really, during that. And I admittedly haven't done that much research into it, but I haven't really heard shit about it. You know,
it's not like the headline articles,
right?
Which is very different. It's the first time that I haven't seen that in a long time. And I wonder if it has something to do with the fact that it's a hate crime. I mean, this is an anti-Semitic hate crime.
That's a bigger
it's
deal
pretty
than
blatant
the gun thing.
Yeah. And it's almost like that took precedent. And then I talked to you about that story that I saw in the New York Times about how, you know, the New York Times was addressing how it's dangerous to live as a Jewish person in New York City.
Yeah.
Because hate crimes are up. I want to say it was 20%. The amount of hate crimes, anti-Semitic hate crimes that have been committed against Jewish people in New York City is 20 times more than those committed against the trans community, multiple times more than those committed against the black community.
I mean, so
it is the highest it's ever been.
That's so weird.
I mean, at least in the last, you know, decades.
Based on a report by New York Times?
Yeah, it's an article. I'll list it I'll send you the link so we can show it in the show notes.
That's so
weird. It's
a
really interesting article, and, you know, and actually, you know, I will give it to Ben Shapiro about this one, because he brought the article up on one of his shows this week, which prompted me to look it up and read it. And it's very interesting to see that the article addresses the fact that why, you know, they're asking why it's so difficult to report on, why people don't report on it very often. Why isn't this the headline of every newspaper in New York?
Yeah.
And they say in the article, because they said it's hard to make it fit a narrative. And I thought that was incredibly interesting when you read it, because, I mean, it's a pretty easy article to read, and it's not even very long. And they talk about the statistics that I was just talking about. They were talking with I think it was the head of the hate crimes division of the NYPD. And, you know, it runs very against the grain when it comes to, like I told you earlier, it's problematic for kind of the intersectional folks, the intersectional far left people, because now it's almost like, okay, well, in a big city, in one of the most left, you know, cities in America, there's a huge, you know, discrimination problem. Obviously, there's a huge hate crime problem.
Right.
You know, but they're not they're not high ranking in the oppression Olympics. I think who was that dubbed it Oppression Olympics? Was it Gad Sad?
I don't know.
Something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it was just a very interesting article. It brought something to my attention that I didn't really even know about. Mm-hmm. You know, my in-laws live in a very predominantly Jewish neighborhood, and I've always thought it was one of the safest neighborhoods around. Like, I've never felt unsafe in that neighborhood, which is crazy to think about. And you know, it was a very interesting read, and it kind of makes you go, what's the problem here? Why do people hate the Jews so much? I've never understood that, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because, you know, you hear that joked around a lot, you know, as a kid and all that. And these days, I feel like, especially in the conspiracy crowd, in the hardcore conspiracy crowd, there's a lot of like hardcore anti-Semites running through there. Like, I know some. And I just go, why? I don't get it, man. Like, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But then again, that applies to anybody that judges somebody on, you know, immutable characteristic. Who gives a shit?
Right.
I don't understand it. So it'll be something interesting to watch to see what happens in New York, if something comes up to address this or what. But what else? What do you got in the grab bag there?
I have a couple of quick little things. Dr. Plum told me earlier this week that because fucking Dave Z told me that. And so Dave Z is slotted for not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after that. Okay. Dave Z slot. I'm pretty sure we're going to go to his house. Mm-hmm. If that's all right with you.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Just, you know, make it easier.
That sounds fun. Yeah, definitely.
But
Z-Man gets all the hookups.
Yeah, Dave Z's hella cool. I'm super excited for that episode. He told me that he took an electricity class when he was in high school. And I was like, Dave, what the fuck are you talking about? So we talked about that. And when Dr. Plum walked by, he's handing out the charts and shit. And I said, Dr. Plum, did you take electricity class when you were in high school? And he said, no, but, and I said, oh my God, because Dr. Plum is so weird, you know? He said, no, but CK didn't used to have Martin Luther King Day, and we had two different like holidays for President's Day, but Bremerton District had Martin Luther King Day, and so they had like an extra day off during the year. And I said, what?
Drop mic on stage, I'm out.
He said, yeah, no, not until like the mid 80s they didn't have Martin Luther King Day. And I said, what the fuck are you talking about? And he was like, he's like, yeah, no, we just didn't have that. And I was like, that seems really fucked up. Like, that seems really strange. That like that you guys just didn't recognize Martin Luther King Day. And he's like, yeah. And then in the same year, they combined like Washington and Lincoln's birthday, and they made it President's Day, and we got Martin Luther King Day. It's like all in the same year. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's fucked up. Like, that does not seem correct. Yeah. So,
the way the government does federal holidays is really weird.
Well, and the weird thing is that it wasn't just like, it was the CK district, but not the Bremerton district. Like, Bremerton had Martin Luther King Day, but CK didn't. That's fucking weird. And just for people who, if anybody doesn't live here, right? The Bremerton district, that's like, it's right here. And the Central Kitsap district, they butt right up against each other. So it's weird because they overlap. Like, Bremerton and Silverdale are two different little towns that they're just right next to each other. You can, there are parts where you live somewhere and you're like, do you live in Silverdale or Bremerton? Like, who fucking knows? Like, this is how, true. Like,
when I lived there, I lived in Bremerton, but I was in Silverdale.
Yeah.
I was on the wrong side of the street.
Right.
To be in Silverdale.
Right.
I was in Bremerton.
So it's weird shit like that. And so that's why I'm like, what do you mean that? And even like the high school that I went to is in Bremerton, like the town of Bremerton, but it's not in the Bremerton school district. It's in the CK school district, So like, that's how close they are. So it's weird.
It's like educational really gerrymandering.
Yeah. Super strange that's how it was. But I thought that was really interesting.
That is so weird.
And then I told you this story a long time ago that I reheard and now have the correct version of. And so it was a story that I heard on Meat Eater when he was talking about, I had told you someone had hunted like the biggest fucking elk or like cougar or something like that in this area, right?
Okay.
But the real story is that it was the biggest mule deer buck to come out of Idaho, right? And so this person accidentally killed the biggest mule deer buck to come out of Idaho for like 30 years.
Accidentally.
Right? He was just riding his horse and like came up on it and shot it because it was in his way. And it ended up being
accidentally.
And like, you know, like
he didn't accidentally kill it. He accidentally killed the biggest one.
Exactly. And his name was Grover. Right. And so Stephen Rennell, as he's telling the story, he's like, I just feel like it's really important that if you're going to accidentally kill the biggest buck to come out of Idaho, you do it with the name Grover, you know? And then I was listening to his podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was talking to a guy, I think his name was like Kevin maybe, who was a squirrel man. And he had squirrel dogs and hunted squirrels and all this stuff. And they were talking about a guy that he used to hunt raccoons with. And he said, and he was a real coon man. He said, you know, he was a coon man. His name was Festus. And I'm just like, that's beautiful. Like, that's a beautiful thing. And like, that's the true sign of a coon man is his name is Festus.
That objectively makes sense on a million levels.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
And then have you seen the movie Tropic Thunder?
Of course.
Okay. So have you heard about Shaun White?
Yes.
So Shaun White, have you heard about Shaun White recently?
I heard there was a controversy around Shaun White.
So Shaun White dressed as Simple Jack for Halloween.
Yes, that's what it was.
And people flipped shit.
Yeah.
And have you seen like the costume?
No.
You should look it up. You should Google Shaun White Simple Jack because it's, and I'm not even gonna like, I'll take whatever heat anybody wants to give to me. This costume is fucking gold. It is spot on. Like, I don't even care. It's absolutely gold. So I'm not even gonna defend it. It's awesome.
It's just pure
It's unfortunate that he apologized. I understand why. Isn't that fucking gold?
Wow. That is a very accurate costume.
Okay, so the thing that, yes, the side by side. So the thing that irritated me about this, right, is people are getting upset about him dressing as a character in a movie, right?
Yeah.
Because Simple Jack is not even a real fucking movie. Like, it's a character that Ben Stiller plays when he's playing somebody else in a movie.
Exactly.
What the fuck, dude? We're at a point where you can't even be somebody who's double pretend.
Not in Halloween.
Are you fucking
can't do that
serious?
Anymore.
That is crazy.
Halloween basically just doesn't exist anymore. It's not allowed. You know who, I think the very, very last human being on the face of the planet to ever dress in blackface is Robert Downey Jr. in that same movie.
And people shit on him at the time, but like not that much. Like it eventually washed away, you know? And that's crazy.
It is.
Because if you put that movie out now, do you think that people wouldn't fucking shoot him when he was out in the public somewhere for being in blackface? Like,
I don't know.
He would be assassinated. Just like Shaun White's probably about to be. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, this is crazy. No, and that's fucking gold. If you've seen fucking Tropic Thunder before, you look up this costume and you tell me that isn't spot goddamn on. Because that's hilarious.
It is 100%.
My mom worked with adults with disabilities for almost 20 fucking years. If you're going to tell me I don't have respect, then you're a stupid piece of shit. And that is gold. That's fucking funny.
It's
objectively, comedically, that's funny.
I think when it comes to Halloween, you have to take the cultural offensiveness goggles off because people are dressing as characters, man.
I saw this. Report.
Megyn Kelly's getting fired over it.
I saw this report.
Did you see that?
No.
Oh, okay. We'll get to that later.
I saw this report when I came home on Wednesday that was on King 5's like afternoon talk show that's called Take 5, and it's all these people who are really trendy and sit around a coffee table and like talk and
super
bullshit.
trendy.
And they're like, just when it comes to Halloween, just be sensitive. Think about other people and be considerate of people's feelings, and don't dress as anything that's like insensitive or inflammatory. Just be really careful about what you're doing. Fuck you. Yeah. Fuck you. This is America. That's not how this works. No.
So let me ask you this.
Was not a fan.
I mean, can somebody dress up in blackface on Halloween?
Ooh, that's a bad idea. That carries a heavier connotation.
It does.
And that's why I feel like...
But I mean, this is a contemporary modern character from a hit film. It makes sense.
Okay, so
if you're not going to go out there and try to mock these people actively...
Let me put this to you, right? When I was in 5th grade, okay?
You thought about that really hard.
I want to make sure that I am as specific as possible. I was in... it couldn't have been 5th grade. It had to be 6th grade. Right?
I am like dying with anticipation.
Okay, so it was either 5th or 6th grade because I really want to. And I went to daycare at these people's house called the Joneses, and we can totally leave that in. It's not a problem. I'm not worried about it. And there was a kid that was in my same grade whose name was Tyler Jones, who I actually worked with at the call center too, which was really weird. But he was in not my same class, but like the same grade as me in a different person's class. And they did this project where they had to dress up as an important person, an important figure in history, right?
Okay.
So Tyler Jones was Oprah Winfrey. Okay. Tyler Jones came to school in not just black face, right? But like black, like painted like his whole neck brown and like his arms and shit. And so I don't know if that's like counts as blackface. Like I would say that it does because they said that
today's connotation it would.
So what about that? Right? Because at that time, and because I was either in the 5th or 6th grade, I did not even consider like, well, maybe that's racist. And I don't think anybody else did either. Maybe the teachers, but none of us kids, we didn't think about that. Mm-hmm. But like what?
You know that Megyn Kelly's getting fired for saying exactly what you just said, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
What did she say?
She asked if somebody would want to dress up as Diana Ross and, wore blackface, then, would that be wrong? And she said, I mean, if you're trying to honor somebody in history, and she got raked over the coals.
Really? And that's why I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't.
She did put, which I'm saying, you may... Totally not. I mean, you might have a conversation there, right? But you are Megyn Kelly and you're on NBC, whatever network she's on now.
Yeah.
And you're stupid enough to say that. I'm sorry, man, but you deserve to get fired.
Yeah.
And then she put out this half-assed, like, it looked like, I love the memes that have come out, and, it looks like she's like in a hostage video.
Yeah.
Somebody had put out there that, the only thing missing between that video and a hostage video is her holding up a newspaper with today's date on it. It was pretty half-assed, but I think she knew she was already getting fired, so she didn't give a shit. And, but yeah, it was interesting because it's very similar situations.
And that's why, like I said, at the time, it wasn't a problem. But if someone were to do that same thing now, like if my kid came home and they were like, someone did this project and they were Oprah Winfrey and they were like painted brown, I would be like, that's kind of funny, But also, if somebody else's parent got told that and they're fucking up in arms, what's going to happen to that kid? Like, what's the story in that, Mm-hmm. Because he's not trying to be racist. He's fucking being Oprah Winfrey because he's like, she's the fucking richest woman on the planet. Like, she's owning shit. She's got a TV channel. She's got the show. She's got all this stuff, a book club and all the money and fucking Stedman and all the shit. Like, she owns all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
and why would we assume that the kid has ill intent?
Why
can't we assume that the kid is trying to dress up as somebody that he admires? And, he doesn't, I would highly doubt he has the slightest concept of racism.
Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So. And I mean, it's kids, man. The only people who get worked up about Halloween costumes is us, grown-ups.
Yeah.
Who, man, I don't know. I got issues with a lot of especially on Halloween, man, where it's just, that's the whole point. You dress up as characters and things and stuff. It's Halloween, for God's sakes. Who cares?
Yeah.
I don't go out and have fun with it. If you're out there, acting like a racist asshole, that's a totally different situation.
Right.
But I mean, just because you dress up as somebody, what if you admire him? We're going to just assume the worst. Like, we're going to, again, just like so many different hot button issues, we're assuming malice when ignorance or, other should probably be the first response we have. Why do we assume that because Shaun White dressed up as Simple Jack, he's just not trying to portray a character in a movie?
Right.
Why is he all of a sudden making fun and mocking people with mental disabilities? Why?
Racist as fuck.
Yeah, why? I don't get it. I can get the adult blackface situation. I can definitely understand that one. It's like if somebody dressed up as like a Jewish person in a concentration camp, or something like that, some kind of horrible human tragedy that's very recent, that is still very, emotional. People still have feelings to it. I mean,
think that's too much?
Yeah, I think that would be. I mean, I'm not personally, I don't care unless, again, you're out there doing something terrible. But I mean, if you're just trying to do something, you have a good reason to do it. Whatever, dude. I don't care. You ain't hurting anybody. I don't care. And so, and if somebody was offended enough to go up to somebody and be like, hey, I just wanted to know, like, I'm seeing you dressed up like this, and I feel like you're kind of being an asshole or making fun of something that was, a very hard thing for whatever.
Yeah.
You should be able to be like, well, the guy would be like, hey, man, I didn't mean anything by it. Maybe they did. I don't know. But if they can explain a rational reason for doing it, because there's a million rational reasons why you would want to dress up like somebody like Obama. Because a lot of people find him completely and utterly, fascinating, interesting, wonderful. They think he was, the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
I mean, would you hate on somebody for trying to do that? I don't think I would. Trying to dress up as somebody you admire. But, like, again, it's 2018. There's rules, and for whatever reason, they're there in the society, and we can't do stuff like that. But Shaun White's costume is spot on and absolutely hilarious.
There's one other thing that I want to talk about, and then I'm ready to move on to sports.
Yeah, man.
Unless you have anything else. Adam Sandler. Right. So Adam Sandler put out a new comedy special on Netflix.
Did he?
Yes.
I missed it.
Okay. And I'll tell you now, as an absolutely enormous Adam Sandler fan, it is quite possibly the greatest thing he's ever done.
Okay.
So it's like an hour and a half long, and the first hour and like 10 minutes is comedy and like songs that he's done, like classic type of Adam Sandler shit,
The old school Adam Sandler.
The last two things
the Hanukkah song type stuff.
Last two things he does had me crying like a little bitch, right? Because he does a tribute song to Chris Farley, right? That's just, it's called like My Friend Chris Farley, that's just about like his life and all this stuff. And, at one point he talks about how like really, really personal shit. And at one point they talked about how they were like warning him about like his drug abuse and stuff. And like, if you don't watch out, like you're going to end up like John Belushi and all this stuff. And he said, those guys are my idols. That's just fine. That's what he said to them. And so that's like part of the song, shit like that. And then he has another song that he does after that. That is a song that he sings to his wife. And then he goes into a song that's just about like thanking people for growing old with him through like this whole time. Dude, I'm telling you, like just fucking,
wow.
Just streaming tears. And
that's a weird way to like go out on a comedy special,
Yes.
That's strange.
But that's what I'm telling you.
Speaks volumes, though. He wants
possibly the greatest thing he's ever done.
Obviously he has something that he wants to say.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the only way to do it. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out.
I can't recommend that highly enough.
Joey Diaz, his Netflix special's out too. I got to watch that.
Yeah, I haven't watched that either.
I think Joe Rogan basically ran the whole thing and helped him produce it, I'm pretty sure. And remember they talked about it for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm curious Joey Coco Diaz is hilarious.
So are you ready for sports?
Sports.
Okay. So
sports ball.
The trade deadline was on Tuesday for football, so it was a fucking big week, right? Mm-hmm. So the Browns, right? They had like 2 wins, like 3 losses and a tie, right?
I'm all about the Browns right now.
The Browns fired their head coach.
Yeah.
And then they fired their offensive coordinator.
Cleaning house.
On the same day. Deshaun Jackson, before we get into some real heavy trade shit, right? Deshaun Jackson has 24 touchdowns of over 60 yards, which is the most in NFL history because he's a baller. Right. So after that, Ryan Fitz, he got named the starter for Week 9 for the Bucs because Jameis Winston threw 4 picks last week.
I thought I told you I don't want to talk about this. I got hurt feelings about this.
I picked up Ryan Fitz this week. I'm fucking jazzed. He's
don't think I didn't notice.
It's going to be crazy.
That is pretty cool, though. He's getting another shot.
Yes. Hopefully he does okay.
Hopefully.
I got to play Chad this week, and I need this motherfucking win. Mm-hmm. I'm not projected to be in the playoffs right now, and I need these motherfucking dollars.
Well, if you're not... I know I'm not.
Yeah, I need these dollars. So the Broncos traded Demaryius Thomas and a 7th-round pick to the Texans for a 4th-round pick and a 7th-round pick. So Demaryius Thomas plays for the Texans now. First game against the Broncos. So he's going to play the Broncos this upcoming week. The Lions traded Golden Tate to the Eagles.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
For like a 5th-round pick or some such shit. Like really not that much. Like, yeah, not that much at all.
Interesting.
The Seahawks cut Brandon Marshall. The Giants rookie quarterback Kyle Lauletta. So they were talking about benching Eli Manning, right? Because he's such an old piece of shit and so terrible at football. And so they were talking about Kyle Lauletta starting for him. And then like Monday night, he got arrested for a traffic violation, and he was ignoring the cops and almost ran over a cop. Like tried to run away from the cops and almost ran over a cop. So I don't even think that he plays for the Giants anymore. And he was right about to get the start. Like got drafted last year, was right about to get the start, and fucked up.
That's the NFL deep state acting to protect the Manning legacy.
So Lauletta's out. The Packers traded Ty Montgomery. Okay, so check this, right? Last week, the Packers are playing the Rams, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the Packers were down by like 3. And they were about to get the ball with like just under 2 minutes left. And so they're going to receive it. And Ty Montgomery is going to receive the kick. And so their head coach is like, don't fucking return that ball. You take a knee in the end zone. You take him to the 25, and you let Aaron Rodgers get on the field and do his fucking magic and win the game and ruin the Rams' winning streak, and we're all going to leave happy. So Ty Montgomery decides that he's going to take the ball out of the end zone, right? So he starts running out of the end zone, gets tackled, fumbles the fucking ball. The Rams get the ball. They kick a fucking field goal, and they win the goddamn game. So Ty Montgomery got traded to the Ravens like 2 days later. And so that happened. The Packers also traded their safety, Clinton Dix, to the Redskins for a 2019 4th-round pick. The Jags traded Dante Fowler Jr. to the Rams for a 2019 3rd-round pick and a 2020 5th-round pick, which is fucking stupid because the Rams' goddamn defense is so stacked already. This guy, he was a 3rd overall pick, Dante Fowler. Just trade him to the goddamn Rams. Fuck the Rams, dude. But check this. Sunday Night Football this week is fucking Pats Packers.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Oh my God. I'm so excited. It's going to be nasty.
What game is that? Is it
the Sunday night?
Sunday night game.
Yep.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one.
Terrell Pryor, he's signing with the Bills. He signed with the Bills already. And then Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, he announced his retirement. So he is not going to play anymore. And then last night, did you watch the game last night?
I did not.
Holy shit. Because the 49ers and the Raiders played each other. The 49ers won fucking 34-3. 34 to goddamn 3.
I cannot believe that.
With their third string quarterback, Colin. Third string quarterback, they came out and he threw perfect for like two series. 2 touchdowns at the end. It was fucking insane.
So that's one thing. But what does that say about the Raiders?
The Raiders' defense was hot trash. It was some of the worst I've ever seen. The first touchdown to Pierre Garçon, he kicks off this fucking bootleg route. He comes up out of the slot and just kicks off through the middle and catches it right here, gone. Just completely open, untouched, like no one's fucking near him. It was the craziest shit I've ever seen. And it like that all game. There was the running back, Mabridi, he had one cutback. He's going to the right. Everybody on the defense fucking bit on this play, and he just cuts back and goes and gets like 15 yards. Peace out. Like, it was some of the worst shit I have ever seen from a goddamn NFL defense was what I saw from the Raiders last night. They're averaging allowed like 200 yards rushing per game. Absurd. Absolutely
rushing?
Absurd. Yep.
Oh, that's
absolutely absurd.
That's sad. That's really sad.
So the Chiefs and the Browns play each other this week. And so that's Baker Mayfield, Patty Mahomes going against each other. The last time they played each other was in college, and there was like 1,100 yards of offense in that game. And
what colleges did they play for?
I think that Mahomes played for Texas Tech, and then Baker Mayfield played for Oklahoma.
Okay.
At least when he graduated. He played for like 3 different colleges, but graduated.
Both big football, colleges.
Went up.
Yeah.
Didn't start at a big school, but went up to a bigger school. And so that's how they did that. Yeah, last time. And I think the score was like 66-54 or something like that. So that game should be absurd. With as terrible
I really hope.
as Kansas City's defense is and as awesome as their offense is, they should be able to take advantage of the Browns defense. And Baker Mayfield should be able to take advantage of the Chiefs defense.
I hope so, because I'm going to play Mayfield this week.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll get some yardage.
The only injury I have is Will Fuller. He tore his ACL, and so he's out for the rest of the year. So I'm going to pull up my pick'ems real quick, because usually I do them in between, but I only have the one injury. So, but that's it. So I picked the Raiders last night, which was a terrible idea because they lost 34-3.
Who could have seen that coming?
And that's what I'm saying. But the next game after that is Falcons at the Redskins. Falcons 26%, Redskins 74%, and the Falcons are 3-4. The Redskins are 5-2, and I went with the Redskins because their defense is pretty good. They're doing pretty all right. After that, it is Chiefs Browns. The Browns are 2-5-1, and the Chiefs are 7-1, and they're 97%. And I went with the Chiefs on that one. And then after that, we have...
I'm hoping Mayfield will get me fantasy points, but I don't think they'll win.
Yeah, I think he'll be definitely fantasy relevant. But, yeah, I don't think that they'll win the game.
Yeah, they don't necessarily correlate.
After that is fucking Lions at Vikings. The Lions are 3-4, and the Vikings are 4-3-1. The Lions have 5%, Vikings 95%. And I actually went with the Lions on this one. I got a weird thing about Matt Stafford. He's good. You know what I'm saying?
For Matt Stafford.
Yeah. And they just traded away Golden Tate. They got some other talent coming up. They're getting the running game going. I think they got a good possibility of winning. You know what I'm saying? Kirk Cousins isn't worth $80 million that he's getting paid. He's not worth it. So I think it's possible. After that is Bears at Bills. The Bears 94%, they're 4-3, and the Bills 6%, and they're 2-6. And I went with the Bears on that one because their offense is fucking hot flames right now.
Yeah.
After that is Steelers at Ravens. The Steelers are 4-2-1, and the Ravens are 4-4.
Steelers.
I actually went with the Ravens on that one. They're 44%.
I think that's going to be a good game, though.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
It usually is between those guys, the divisional rivals like that. The Steelers 56%, Ravens 44%, but I went with the Ravens on that one. Next one, Buccaneers Panthers. Buccaneers 3-4, 5%, and the Panthers 95%, 5-2.
Yeah, you can't discount Cam.
I went with the Bucks on that one because Ryan Fitz is coming. Ryan Fitzpatrick is coming out. I think if he can slang it like he was doing before.
Yeah. Because as long as the only thing you need to do to beat the Panthers is beat Cam Newton.
Exactly.
As soon as you can turn it around on him, he starts to get all bitchy and then his game just plummets.
Goes straight down.
As soon as he gets mad.
So if they can get up quick enough, and if they can do like that first game, he came out through the 75-yard fucking touchdown pass to Deshaun Jackson first play of the game. So like if they do some shit like that, if they can get up real quick, then I think that they stand a good chance. But I might take a loss on that one, and that's fine. After that is Jets 13%, 3-5. Dolphins 87%, 4-4. I know the Dolphins on that one.
That's a game I don't want to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm not excited for that.
Jets, Dolphins.
After that is Texans 69%, 5-3, and Broncos 31%, 3-5. And I went with the Texans on that one. They also just got Demaryius Thomas, so I think it's going to be a fucking great game.
Is he kind of on the downward slope of his career?
I think that the Broncos are just on a downward slope, and so they were trying to. He's not doing he's definitely not at his peak, you know.
Yeah, because you remember was that?
But he's not washed up. You know?
It was like the year before, the year of the Super Bowl, I think, when Broncos were just on fire.
Yeah,
it was that Demaryius Thomas was a beast.
He had like a bajillion yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's not washed up. You know, but like I said, he's not at his peak performance. And then after that is Chargers 42% 5-2 and Seahawks 58% 4-3. I think the Hawks can take this one. The Chargers are good. Phillip Rivers throws for a fuckload of yards, but I think the
Hawks got this one coming.
And the Chargers defense isn't as strong as they thought it was going to be when it started the year. Joey Bosa still isn't playing their other DN, so I think that the Hawks can do it. They've been looking really fucking good. They've been running the ball strong. Number one in rushing attempts, right now, I think maybe over the last 6 weeks, or maybe I've been on the season, last in passing attempts. Russell Wilson isn't running the ball. I mean, they're looking good. The Hawks are looking fucking great right now. So I think they can do it.
Yeah, I'll give it to them. I got to hope for the boys, man. You know.
After that, we got the Rams 43% 8-0, and the Saints 57% 6-1. I think the Saints can do it. And I want the Saints to do it. And
I really want the Saints to do it.
Fuck the Rams.
The Rams are...
I'm sick of this shit.
Yeah. They need to be put in their place.
Sick of this shit.
Come on, people.
Yeah.
Shut them down. Make some bad trades.
After that is Green Bay at the Patriots. Packers 13% 3-3-1. Patriots 87% 6-2. I went with the Pats on that one. Tom Brady's Tom Brady.
Yeah. I hate him.
It's going to be a great fucking game, though.
Yeah,
Sunday
it will.
Night. Yeah.
God, that's going to be good.
Sunday night at 5:20, it's going to be a fantastic fucking game.
I'm reserving that time slot.
And then the last one is Titans at Cowboys. Titans 10% 3-4, and Cowboys 90% 3-4. I went with the Cowboys. Titans look like shit.
Mm-hmm.
So
the Cowboys aren't doing terrible.
No.
But yeah, I haven't been able to watch as much football as I want to lately. I started out the season real strong, but I'm definitely watching that Packers-Pats game.
Oh, it's going to be a great game.
I can't wait.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited.
Ooh. So that's a 5:30 game Sunday.
Yes.
Word.
5:20.
You know what really sucked? I'll tell you this. I feel, and you've never had to deal with this, living on the East Coast and trying to watch football is a struggle.
Yeah.
It's so difficult, man. Because that late night game, I mean, that is a long Sunday night, man.
Yeah.
It's a long Sunday night. And especially if you want to try to, have some beers.
I've thought about that a lot.
Yeah, it was backward, because I lived on the East Coast for, a long time.
Right.
Had to deal with that for a long time. A lot of sleepless Sundays. But that's why I'm so glad to be back on the right coast, which is the left coast.
Yeah. So that's all I have for sports. I'm done. I'm out of here.
Done.
You ready to get out of here?
I am not a crook. I don't know why I just thought of Richard Nixon. I don't know too much about it, but I know Philip DeFranco covered it pretty well. This University of Maryland head coach situation. Got fired because one of the kids a while back died of heat stroke, complications from heat stroke.
Word.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff about that.
I've not read up on that. So but let me do that. We can talk about it next week.
I want to talk about it sometime soon because it just seems, and there's some cool stuff.
We can talk about that next week for sure.
But yeah, that definitely happened. So if you're a college football fan, that's definitely some kind of big news. Because Maryland is a pretty big football state. Right?
Yes.
At least on the university level.
Yes.
Yeah. That's probably why it was such big news to me. I'm pretty clueless about the college level football situation.
College football is good.
But it's on Saturday, bro. It's tough sometimes.
Fun to watch.
Get her done, homie.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ready to get the fuck out of here?
Absolutely.
All right, man. Let me just tell you that no one in the history of crack has ever woken up in the morning with more crack. It's all gone when you wake up in the morning.
I feel like that's a very objective fact. God.
It's just very honest.
Yeah. That's a true statement.